Welcome to Episode 3 of The Path to Heaven. After barely surviving the One-Horned Thunder Kui, Nguy Tac returns with new treasures, more spirit stones, and an even stronger desire to push his cultivation higher. But this time, danger is no longer waiting only in the wilderness. A late-night message from Nam Cung Vu Tinh pulls him into another hunt, one involving rare spiritual herbs, powerful demonic beasts, and more than 30 deadly ice snail blade mantises. And just when things seem complicated enough, Han VV appears again, bringing old grudges, new challenges, and a confrontation Nguy Tac definitely did not plan for. As his cultivation rises and hidden threats begin moving in the shadows, Nguy Tac is about to discover that surviving the cultivation world takes more than strength. Sometimes, it takes shamelessness, preparation, and a very large stack of talismans. This is Episode 3 of The Path to Heaven. Whoosh! The massive green serpent inhaled so violently that it looked as though it were slurping up noodles. Dry branches, dead leaves, gravel, everything around it was sucked into its mouth along with the rushing air. Its upright neck swelled several times larger. Then the muscles throughout its body contracted. The serpent's head twisted into an expression that looked almost like it was straining to relieve itself. Puff! Its swollen neck suddenly shrank to half its previous size. A blast of compressed air roared from its mouth like a violent gale, striking Nguy Tac's incoming fireball and blowing it completely off course. Why is my luck this terrible? Nguy Tac had truly kicked an iron plate this time. The One-Horned Thunder Kui was a fourth-tier demonic beast. It could inhale massive amounts of air, compress that air with the muscles in its neck, then expel it as a blade-like gale. At the same time, the single horn on its forehead could release trident-shaped lightning, whose power was comparable to an ordinary lightning spell cast by a fourth-level Divine Sea cultivator. And more importantly, unless Nguy Tac remembered incorrectly, the One-Horned Thunder Kui was not merely a fourth-tier beast. It was a fourth-tier middle-rank beast. Once demonic beasts reached the fourth tier, even a single sub-rank of difference could multiply their abilities several times over. A lower-rank fourth-tier beast could not yet eject its demonic core to attack an enemy. A middle-rank fourth-tier beast could. And the impact of such a demonic core was comparable to a spell cast by a fifth-level Divine Sea cultivator. Man proposes, heaven disposes. Cultivators died every year because the world never stayed exactly the same. No one had expected Vanza Valley to currently contain a fourth-tier middle-rank One-Horned Thunder Kui. Crack! Crack! The speed at which a fourth-tier middle-rank demonic beast could unleash its abilities was almost impossible to imagine. The fireball Nguy Tac had just thrown had barely been blown aside when a pale golden trident of lightning flashed from the horn on the Thunder Kui's forehead and slammed into his protective barrier. Nguy Tac staggered forward and nearly fell flat on his face. What kind of nonsense is this? If you want to fight me, wait until I reach the 5th level of the Divine Sea realm. You're a mighty fourth-tier middle-rank demonic beast. And you've got all these little brothers helping you too. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? What made Nguy Tac want to cry was that the One-Horned Thunder Kui apparently felt no shame whatsoever. Its huge body bent slightly. Then, like a mountain suddenly hurled forward, it covered several zhang in an instant. Even if Nguy Tac used a wind escape talisman, he still could not match that speed. The monster would catch him. Seeing that the Thunder Kui had no intention of letting him escape and clearly planned to eat him, Nguy Tac had no choice. He reached into his robes and pulled out a fistful of fireball talismans. Boom! A wheel-sized mass of flame shot from his hand. The reactions of a fourth-tier demonic beast were truly worthy of its rank. The Thunder Kui opened its mouth again and released another violent blast of air, sending the fireball skimming past its body before it exploded against the ground. Take this! At that exact moment, Nguy Tac stopped running. The golden serpent lightning fork he had practiced until it became second nature shot out and struck the Thunder Kui directly in the neck. The monster's neck, which had just begun contracting again, convulsed as though it had choked while drinking water. Frost Talisman. Seeing that the golden serpent lightning fork was effective even against a lightning element beast, Nguy Tac immediately activated a second-tier Frost Talisman. A wave of bitterly cold white mist surged from his hand and swallowed the Thunder Kui's head. Nguy Tac had discovered how useful second-tier Frost Talismans could be, so he had bought 2 and kept them on him. Unfortunately, the One-Horned Thunder Kui was simply too enormous. The freezing mist could cover only its head. A thick shell of ice formed around its skull, making the terrifying monster look as though someone had jammed a giant block of ice over its face. The sight was absurdly comical. Boom! 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 But Nguy Tac was not laughing. The Frost Talisman did not seem to hinder the creature much at all. His scalp went numb. He began activating fireball talismans as fast as he possibly could. Even Nguy Tac himself lost count of how many he threw. Within moments, the area 4 or 5 zhang around the One-Horned Thunder Kui had become a sea of fire. Damn, it's demonic core! The fireball talisman struck like a chain of exploding cannon shots. A scorched smell spread from the Thunder Kui's body, yet it still did not die. Instead, the bombardment completely enraged it. Greenish air poured from its mouth. Then a pale yellow demonic core the size of a pigeon's egg flew up from its throat and smashed into the golden barrier surrounding Nguy Tac. Crack! The demonic core looked almost ordinary as it struck the barrier. The instant the two collided, however, more than 100 brilliant golden lightning bolts as thick as fingers exploded outward. Nguy Tac felt a terrifying force crush toward him. He barely had time to shriek before the impact hurled his entire body through the air. The golden defensive barrier shattered at the same time. The demonic core paused in midair for only an instant. Then it spun rapidly and flew back toward the roaring Thunder Kui's mouth, ready to be launched again. Nguy Tac knew with absolute certainty that he could not survive a second strike. Then, suddenly, the protective light of his Spirit Heaven Jade Pendant activated on its own. At the same moment, beside the real Nguy Tac who was rolling across the ground, another Nguy Tac appeared out of thin air. The One-Horned Thunder Kui, already maddened by the flames burning across its body, froze. Its limited intelligence clearly could not understand why a second Nguy Tac had suddenly grown out of nowhere while the first was still lying on the ground. Frost Talisman! Nguy Tac had just escaped death. He did not waste the opening. While the Thunder Kui was still confused, he activated his final second-tier Frost Talisman as quickly as possible. The monster's head was frozen again. Crack! The demonic core shot from its mouth and shattered the ice coating its head. But at that same instant, boom! A fireball fired by Nguy Tac flew directly into the creature's enormous blood-red mouth. The eyes of the fourth-tier middle-rank beast bulged like bronze bells. It looked as though it had swallowed a red-hot iron ball and desperately wanted to spit it back out, but could not. Why aren't you dead yet? Nguy Tac stopped caring about everything else. He activated fireball talismans like a madman. Wave after wave of flame poured down onto the One-Horned Thunder Kui's head. The monster seemed to want to spit out its demonic core again, but the non-stop explosions gave it no chance to breathe. Lightning continuously flashed across the horn on its forehead. Boom! Nguy Tac had no idea how many fireballs he had thrown by then. At last, the Thunder Kui's cavernous mouth and throat were burned into a charred ruin. Its massive body, which had been reared upright, lost all strength and crashed to the ground. Nguy Tac still did not dare stop. He threw another 7 or 8 fireball talismans. Only when the thick body of the One-Horned Thunder Kui finally stopped twitching did he collapse onto the ground, drenched from head to toe in cold sweat. He sat there panting for a long time. Only after pouring an entire bottle of chi recovery powder into his mouth did he finally calm down. That fight had been far too dangerous. None of his defensive talismans had been capable of withstanding the Thunder Kui's demonic core strike. If the illusory light talisman had not confused the beast for that brief instant, Nguy Tac would already have been blasted into pieces. I killed a 4th-tier middle-rank demonic beast by myself? Nguy Tac stared at the corpse, which was several times larger than his own body. For a moment, even he could not believe it. The surroundings had become completely empty. A few flames still burned, sending blue-gray smoke into the air. The spectacle created by his endless fireball talismans had been so terrifying that the flesh-winged scale serpents had all fled. Several iron wire snakes that had been caught in the explosions lay dead on the ground. Nguy Tac searched the area. He found the corpses of 6 iron wire snakes and 3 flesh-winged scale serpents. After stuffing them all into his storage treasure pouch, he walked toward the Thunder Kui's enormous body. The 4th-tier middle-rank demonic beast was already dead, yet the savage primordial aura lingering around it still made his skin crawl. What's that? There was still room inside his storage treasure pouch. Nguy Tac was afraid another powerful demonic beast might appear, so he intended to store the entire corpse of the monster that had nearly killed him and leave immediately. But as he approached, he noticed a faint red glow inside a blackened wound on its belly. It did not look like the demonic core. Nguy Tac hesitated, then curiosity won. He fired several azure water blades and carefully opened the wound wider. The red glow became stronger. Something seemed to be stuck inside the creature's stomach. By now, Nguy Tac had enough experience processing demonic beast corpses that he simply reached inside and pulled the glowing object free. His eyes went round. The object giving off that soft red light was a female cultivator's undergarment, as thin as a cicada's wing. Some unlucky cultivator probably bought this for his Dao companion? That was the first thought to enter Nguy Tac's mind. The undergarment was still wrapped in a black leather pouch, which meant it had never been worn. Some cultivator must have been carrying it when the One-Horned Thunder Kui swallowed him whole. A Fire Phoenix Undergarment? Nguy Tac unfolded it and froze again. The almost transparent garment was a revealing chest wrap style currently fashionable among female cultivators. Across the cloth, connected runes formed the shape of an even deeper red fire phoenix. It really was a Fire Phoenix Undergarment. Once true essence was poured into it, the garment could manifest a fire phoenix with defensive strength, reaching the second tier. It could withstand an ordinary offensive spell cast by a first-level Heavenly Circuit cultivator. If only this were a Fire Cloud treasure robe instead of a Fire Phoenix Undergarment. Back inside his little stone house in western Linh Nhac City, Nguy Tac stared at the freshly washed Fire Phoenix Undergarment and sighed yet again. The Fire Phoenix Undergarment and the Fire Cloud treasure robe were both famous throughout the region around Linh Nhac City. Both were refined by Nyi Hoa Lin, a renowned artifact refiner of the Hoa Van sect in Ganting City. Their main materials were Fire Silkworm Silk, Cloud Brocade Stone, and Fire Phoenix Feathers. The Fire Phoenix Undergarment and Fire Cloud treasure robe had the same defensive effect. The Fire Phoenix, or Fire Cloud they produced, was comparable to the shield, created by a second-tier defensive talisman, and could withstand the attack of an ordinary first-level Heavenly Circuit cultivator. As long as the wearer still had enough true essence, the defense could be activated again once the previous manifestation weakened. It was said that both items had been created as imitations of an actual magical treasure, called the Fire Kilin Robe. The One-Horned Thunder Kui could digest stone, yet the Fire Phoenix Undergarment looked almost brand new after being pulled from its stomach. It still gave off an alluring glow and felt extraordinarily soft to the touch. That alone showed how excellent its materials were. Nguy Tac imagined a great beauty like Thuy Ling Ni wearing it. He swallowed several times. If this Fire Phoenix Undergarment were placed in an auction at the Kim Ngok Pavilion, it would probably sell for more than 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. And even then, finding one available for purchase was not guaranteed. At present, Nguy Tac badly lacked either a powerful defensive spell or a proper defensive magical treasure. If he had possessed something like this during the fight with the One-Horned Thunder Kui, he would not have struggled nearly as much. Even if he learned a defensive spell, however, his cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the Divine Sea realm. The defense he could produce might not even be as strong as the Earth Shield treasure talisman he had once used. An imitation magical treasure like the Fire Phoenix Undergarment was almost perfectly suited to him. There was only one problem. The Fire Phoenix Undergarment was women's underwear. The Fire Cloud treasure robe was the version designed for male cultivators. For a grown man like Nguy Tac to wear this seductive little chest wrap. Wasn't that far too disturbing? Enough already, the old man in green said indifferently. He had long since grown accustomed to Nguy Tac's skin-crawling laughter, groans, and miserable complaints. With your current cultivation, you should be thanking heaven and earth that you survived an encounter with a 4th-tier middle-rank, One-Horned Thunder Kui. You even found a defensive garment inside its stomach that can barely be considered a quasi-spirit-grade artifact. Your luck is already absurd. What are you still whining about? Nguy Tac thought about it. The old man was right, so he stopped complaining and began counting his gains. The 6 iron-wire snakes, 3 flesh-winged scale serpents, and the One-Horned Thunder Kui that had nearly killed him had all been sold to the Kim Ngok Pavilion after he returned to Linh Nhac City. The Kim Ngok Pavilion currently assumed he was connected to Thiet Sach, so no one found it especially strange that a wandering cultivator of his level occasionally brought in the corpse of a 4th-tier demonic beast. The 6 iron-wire snakes together had sold for only 10 low-grade spirit stones. The 3 3rd-tier flesh-winged scale serpents brought 150. After Nguy Tac searched the Thunder Kui thoroughly and found nothing else of value, he sold its entire corpse together with its demonic core for 250 low-grade spirit stones. Altogether, the trip had earned him 410 low-grade spirit stones. Then Nguy Tac counted his remaining fireball talismans. He had burned through several dozen in Vanza Valley. A little more than 80 remained. Still, after subtracting the cost of those fireball talismans, the 2nd-tier Golden Bell Spirit Talisman, the Frost Talismans, and other consumables, he had still made more than 300 low-grade spirit stones that day. And that did not even include the Fire Phoenix Undergarment. It was a respectable little windfall. With an ancient veteran like the old man in green guiding him, Nguy Tac's rate of earning spirit stones was something no wandering cultivator at the same level could hope to match. Damn 4th level of the Divine Sea realm. After counting everything, Nguy Tac picked up a mid-grade spirit stone and prepared to cultivate. He had exhausted a tremendous amount of true essence today. The effect of cultivation should be excellent. What's this? Just then, a violet-red glow suddenly appeared beneath his clothing. Nam Cung Vu Tinh is looking for me? What does she want at this hour? Nguy Tac instinctively reached into his robe. He immediately froze. The objects shining with brilliant violet-red light were the 3 communication jade talismans Nam Cung Vu Tinh had given him. Night had already fallen completely, Nguy Tac stood up at once. "What are you doing?" The old man in green stared at him with wide eyes. Nguy Tac had taken off his plain blue robe and was tying the Fire Phoenix Undergarment around his body, apparently experimenting with how it was supposed to be worn. "What else? I'm wearing it. I'm short on defensive treasures anyway. If I wear it underneath my clothes, no one will see it." Nguy Tac continued fastening the garment as he spoke. "You really are." The old man in green became completely speechless. He had lived for this long and had never once seen a male cultivator put on seductive women's underwear. The old man silently decided that if anyone ever asked him about Nguy Tac in the future, he would absolutely deny knowing the man. This was too embarrassing. Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Nguy Tac pulled his plain blue robe back over the undergarment and left the house. Even he felt strangely uncomfortable. Wearing a woman's chest wrap was not something a man easily became accustomed to. But compared with his life, dignity was clearly less important. He decided to shamelessly wear it for now and replace it once he found something more suitable. Since Nam Cung Vu Tinh was contacting him this late at night, there had to be something important happening. The moment Nguy Tac left his house, he rushed like the wind toward their agreed meeting place, the largest public notice board in the northern market. Sea of Desire Forbidden Fate pills for sale. Help yourself and your Tao companion reach peak after peak, each higher than the last, buying third-tier demonic cores at high prices, also selling all kinds of talismans. Fair prices, no deception, urgently need spirit stones. Selling an artifact refining cultivation manual cheap. The notice board was covered with every kind of advertisement imaginable. Nguy Tac looked left and right. There was no sign of Nam Cung Vu Tinh. Uncle Nhi? Nguy Tac had just begun wondering whether Nam Cung Vu Tinh had stood him up when a little girl around 7 or 8 years old ran out from a nearby shop. She wore a coarse cloth jacket. Nguy Tac stared at her in surprise. "This uncle's surname really is Nguy. What is it? What's uncle's full name?" The little girl's hair had been tied into 2 buns shaped like goat horns. Her nose was running slightly, and she asked with complete seriousness, "Uncle's name is Nguy Tac. What's the matter?" "Nguy Tac. Then it should be you." The little girl immediately brightened, then complained. "Why did Uncle take so long? I've been waiting forever." "You've been waiting forever?" Nguy Tac's eyes widened. "Yes." The girl gave him a dissatisfied look. "A pretty big sister told me to wait here for Uncle and give you this. Who knew you'd come so late?" The moment she said pretty big sister, Nguy Tac knew it had to be Nam Cung Vu Tinh. Still looking annoyed, the little girl handed him a piece of goat skin. Nguy Tac glanced over it. Nam Cung Vu Tinh had written that she needed his help gathering something and wanted him to meet her at Stone Silkworm Cavern in Duong Cot Mountain. "What is she gathering in the middle of the night?" Nguy Tac muttered as he reread the message. He knew Duong Cot Mountain. It lay about 1,200 miles east of Linh Nhac City. The mountain had been named after the numerous exposed rocks that resembled sheep bones. The Duong Cot Mountain region itself was enormous, consisting of 5 or 6 mountain ranges. Stone Silkworm Cavern was a large cave system in the southernmost range. There were underground rivers and countless stalactites inside, along with a second-tier demonic beast called the Stone Silkworm, which fed on rotting flesh. Stone silkworms looked somewhat like enormous pupae. Their skin possessed a natural petrifying property. When threatened, the normally soft surface of their bodies secreted a liquid similar to stalactite fluid, which hardened into a rocky shell around them. They could also spit that fluid at enemies and encase people inside solid stone. She wants to go into a cave too? Male cultivators might enjoy going into caves. But why would a great beauty like her want to enter some terrifying hole at night? Reaching Stone Silkworm Cavern was not especially difficult. Linh Nhac City had a teleportation formation connected to Duong Cot Mountain. But for cultivators, darkness reduced both visibility and judgment. Many demonic beasts, on the other hand, possessed far better night vision and senses than humans. Night also brought out many creatures that rarely moved during the day. Leaving the city after dark was several times more dangerous than traveling during daylight. That was why many wandering cultivators willingly paid spirit stones simply to spend the night inside Linh Nhac City. And in a cave system filled with interconnected tunnels, the darkness and complexity would only become worse. Nguy Tac complained for a while. Then another question occurred to him. He looked at the little girl. "There are so many people walking past here. Why did you immediately ask whether I was Nguy Tac? How did you know what I looked like?" "The pretty big sister told me." The girl glanced at him. "She said the one whose head looks like an apple and who has a slightly lecherous face would be the right person." Sweat appeared on Nguy Tac's forehead. He had absolutely nothing to say to that. Rubbing his nose, he quickly headed toward the teleportation formation in eastern Linh Nhac City that connected to Duong Cot Mountain. After passing through the mist of the night and leaving the valley that contained the teleportation formation, Nguy Tac saw brilliant lights and scattered ruins among the distant mountains. The ruins had been left from ancient times. Many were so heavily weathered that their original forms could no longer be recognized. There were many such remnants throughout the mountain ranges of Duong Cot Mountain. In antiquity, this place must have been either a great city or an extremely important town. The brilliant lights in the distance probably came from the fusestone crystal mine, controlled by the Linh Nhac sect. Fusestone crystal was a special mineral that melted almost immediately when heated. Once it cooled and solidified again, however, it could withstand extremely high temperatures and became stronger than many refined metals. Because it was easy to cast into shapes and harden so well, fusestone crystal was commonly used in magical artifacts, especially defensive shields. Near Linh Nhac City, the only known fused stone crystal mine was located here in Duong Cot Mountain and controlled by the Linh Nhac sect. The sect normally stationed heavenly circuit experts or stronger cultivators there. Large numbers of low-level cultivators and ordinary mortals worked the mine day and night. Nguy Tac thought the Linh Nhac sect's habit of monopolizing an entire mineral vein was rather shameless. But even if the whole deposit were placed in front of him, it would be useless. Before being melted, fused stone crystal appeared slightly translucent and white. After cooling, it became pitch black. It usually formed fist-sized lumps inside enormous masses of ordinary rock. Extracting any meaningful quantity required a huge amount of manpower. Still, the distant glow of the mine made Nguy Tac feel more at ease while traveling through the dark, wild mountain range. After walking for a little more than half an hour, he finally reached the entrance to the stone silkworm cavern Nam Cung Vu Tinh had described. The entrance opened from relatively flat ground and was several zhang across. It looked like the mouth of some enormous monster waiting to swallow anyone foolish enough to enter. There was no sign of Nam Cung Vu Tinh outside. Nguy Tac did not panic. He took out one of the communication jade talismans and poured a thread of purple true essence into it. The other 3 matching talismans immediately lit up. Only moments later, Nam Cung Vu Tinh emerged from the cavern wearing her tight red soft armor. "Not bad. You were smart enough to use the talisman to tell me you've arrived," she said as soon as she saw him. "I activated mine several times earlier. When you didn't come, I entered first. Why did it take you so long? What happened that's so urgent you had to call me out at this hour?" Nguy Tac looked regretfully at her armor. All the tears from their previous battle had been perfectly repaired. There was not even a mark left, much less any of the things he had been able to see through those openings before. Seeing that Nam Cung Vu Tinh looked worried, he quickly explained. "I went to Thon Min Mountain today. I was probably too far away for the communication jade talismans to receive your signal. How many fireball talismans do you have left?" Nam Cung Vu Tinh asked immediately. Nguy Tac looked puzzled. "A little more than 80. More than 80? Even Nam Cung Vu Tinh seemed surprised that he still had so many. She paused for only an instant. "We don't have much time, I'll explain while we walk." She turned and led the way into the cavern. For some reason, even though Nguy Tac had kept her waiting for so long, and even though Nam Cung Vu Tinh had already sent word to Thiet Sach, because she feared he might not arrive in time, she never once believed he had deliberately ignored her. "What? Jade Cloud Lingzhi?" Nguy Tac followed her deeper into Stone Silkworm Cavern. The cave was filled with bizarre stalactites and damp mist. Nam Cung Vu Tinh had barely said 2 sentences before Nguy Tac stopped in shock. The reason she had urgently summoned him was that, while chasing a 3rd-tier 5-colored centipede into the cavern, she had discovered a branch of Jade Cloud Lingzhi in a side passage, and it was about to ripen. Some rare treasures of heaven and earth could only be harvested within a very specific window. If that moment was missed, their spiritual energy would rapidly disperse until nothing useful remained. Jade Cloud Lingzhi was one of them. It was a white, translucent, spiritual fungus that gleamed like polished jade and even emitted light at night. Its greatest effect was astonishing. It could cause any demonic beast below the 5th tier to advance by 1 subrank. If such a beast consumed a fully ripened branch of Jade Cloud Lingzhi, the effect was similar to a cultivator below the Thought Division realm taking one of the Void Fusion pills refined by Ko Na. The beast's strength would immediately rise by 1 stage. That made Jade Cloud Lingzhi enormously important to cultivators as well. Many sects, such as the Kim Thu Palace of Lai Honglan, raised and trained demonic beasts. If a 4th-tier upper-rank beast consumed 1 branch of Jade Cloud Lingzhi, it could advance directly into the 5th tier. The strength of its master would rise enormously as a result. 1 4th-tier middle-rank One-Horned Thunder Kui had already nearly killed Nguy Tac. A medicinal treasure like this was priceless to sects and cultivators who relied on trained beasts. It was also extremely rare. Once mature, the usable period lasted only a single day and night. After that, the plant would wither and its spiritual energy would disappear. Because of that, Jade Cloud Lingzhi had no fixed market price on the Tianhuian continent. But one thing was certain, it was absolutely valuable enough to be consigned to a major auction at the Kim Nok Pavilion. There are 2 branches. Nam Cung Vu Tinh added from ahead, apparently deciding Nguy Tac was not shocked enough yet. Damn, that truly startled him. 2 branches of Jade Cloud Lingzhi. If someone tamed a 4th-tier middle-rank demonic beast and fed it both branches one after the other, wouldn't it advance twice and become a 5th-tier beast? Still, Nguy Tac understood one thing very clearly. A treasure comparable in value to a void fusion pill would never be sitting there unguarded. Demonic beasts roamed far wider territories than cultivators and possessed far more sensitive noses for spiritual medicines. Nguy Tac hurriedly asked, what kind of beast is guarding the Jade Cloud Lingzhi? A 4th-tier upper-rank wind spirit roarer. Nam Cung Vu Tinh answered quickly. You've got to be kidding me. Another 4th-tier beast? Nguy Tac groaned. The wind spirit roarer was a bizarre creature that resembled a bird, except it had 4 legs and a tail like a monkey's. It could release razor-sharp wind blades. Even the spiritual feathers covering its body could detach and fire like arrows. Worst of all, as a 4th-tier upper-rank demonic beast, it could eject its demonic core to attack, just like the One-Horned Thunder Kui. Nam Cung Vu Tinh glanced back at him strangely. You don't need to worry. I'll deal with the wind spirit roarer. Oh! Right, her calm confidence immediately reminded Nguy Tac of the treasure fragment she possessed, the one capable of instantly killing a 3rd-tier demonic beast. He nodded in understanding. Then, a moment later, his mouth ran ahead of his brain again. If you can handle the wind spirit roarer yourself, why did you call me here? Don't tell me you thought the night was too long and lonely by yourself. Lonely your head. For a brief instant, something like despair seemed to appear inside the mantis's black pupilless eyes. Countless cracks spread across its front limbs. Then both shattered. The green demonic core continued forward and blasted the entire creature into several pieces. After killing the Frostblade Mantis leader, the wind spirit roarer stood there with blood covering its chest and looked toward the 2 branches of Jade Cloud Lingzhi. Their leaves had fully opened. Fine winding lines covered the surface, and tiny round spores glittered like pearls. The 2 branches had completely ripened. The wind spirit roarer opened its beak and prepared to swallow one. At that instant, 2 human figures suddenly appeared in the outer cavern previously occupied by the Frostblade Mantises. A streak of blue light shot from one figure's hand. It was so fast that the wind spirit roarer had no chance to dodge. Whoosh! The blue light pierced through one of its eyes and burst out from the back of its skull. Boom! 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 Before the beast could react, Nguy Tac and Nam Cung Vu Tinh rushed in and bombarded its already wounded body with fireballs. Under normal circumstances, a 4th-tier upper-rank beast like the wind spirit roarer could survive several fireball talismans without much trouble. It would immediately retaliate, just as it had after being wounded by the Frostblade Mantis. But now its head had been heavily injured by Nam Cung Vu Ting's treasure fragment. 2 deep wounds had been carved into its chest. Almost all of its spiritual feathers had already been fired away. It looked like a plucked chicken. Nguy Tac threw more than a dozen fireball talismans in succession. The demonic beast that could normally have killed him with ease was turned into a roasted bird before it could properly fight back. It collapsed and died on the spot. Nguy Tac immediately took control of the narrow passage. He continued throwing fireballs into the surviving Frostblade mantises. Before he had even used 20 more fireball talismans, every mantis that had somehow survived the wind spirit roarer's feather barrage was burned to death. The 2 branches of Jade Cloud Lingzhi filled the cavern with an almost intoxicating fragrance. Ha ha ha! Nguy Tac and Nam Cung Vu Tinh looked at one another, both nearly wild with excitement. They were just about to harvest the 2 spiritual fungi when a sound came from the cavern behind them. A clear, pleasant female voice spoke in disbelief. "It's already over? You've got to be kidding me." Nguy Tac turned around. His eyes immediately went wide. Standing in the cavern behind them with an annoyed expression was the silver-robed, curvy little beauty who had left such a deep impression on him. Han Vivi, well, I was wondering who it was. So it's you. The moment Han Vivi recognized Nguy Tac, she froze. Then all of her frustration vanished and she broke into a smug smile. "Who are you?" Nguy Tac asked, putting on an expression that clearly said, "I have absolutely no idea who you are. Have we met before?" Han Vivi gave him a cold smile. "Who am I? When you stole those 2 stone-tailed wall lizards from me, why didn't you ask who I was? When you acted like a shameless pervert and tried to take your pants off in front of me, why didn't you ask who I was? And now you're pretending you don't know me. Huh?" A handsome young man in a red cultivation robe stood behind Han Vivi. His name was Liungu. He was a Tiat Sash cultivator whom Nam Cung Vu Tinh had called for assistance. She had been afraid Nguy Tac would not arrive in time, so she had urgently sent word to Liungu, who cultivated a technique called the Profound Fire True Art. She had not expected Han Vivi, the treasured young miss of the treasure pavilion, to insist on coming along. Nam Cung Vu Tinh and Liu Engu both froze when they heard Han Vivi. Neither had expected that she and Nguy Tac apparently knew each other. Worse, the way Han Vivi described their history was extremely easy to misunderstand. Acting like a pervert and trying to take off his pants in front of her? Anyone hearing those words would assume Nguy Tac had committed some unforgivable outrage against Han Vivi. Big sister, it was only 2 stone-tailed wall lizards. Do you really need to make it sound like that? Nguy Tac looked at Han Vivi helplessly. Why are you talking like I'm some kind of sexual predator? Who is your big sister? Han Vivi raised her chin. You are a shameless old pervert. Wait, Vivi. Nam Cung Vu Tinh already knew Han Vivi and could no longer hold back. What exactly happened between the two of you? Big sister Nam Cung Vu Tinh, why are you even traveling with this shameless pervert? Han Vivi ignored the question and asked one of her own. Nguy Tac went speechless. He reached toward the 2 branches of Jade Cloud Lingzhi. Arguing with the silver-robed little beauty was a minor matter. The Jade Cloud Lingzhi was what mattered. If they failed to harvest it in time, the spores would fall and the spiritual energy would disperse. That loss would be enormous. Old pervert, what are you doing? Don't move. Are you trying to do something shameless again? Nguy Tac had barely extended his hand before Han Vivi shouted at him. Now harvesting Jade Cloud Lingzhi counts as being a pervert too? Nguy Tac finally became annoyed. Fine. Even if I did steal your 2 stone-tailed wall lizards last time, I'll just compensate you. I admit I was shameless. You don't need to repeat it every time you see me. What do you mean, even if you stole them? You did steal them! Han Vivi glared. If you hadn't acted like a pervert and tried to take off your pants in front of me, do you think you could have beaten me? Do you think those were just 2 ordinary stone-tailed wall lizards? Those were the first demonic beasts I ever hunted. My first time. Do you understand? You stole my first time! Nguy Tac's temper rose too. He sneered. I was wondering why it was so terrible. So that really was your first time. No wonder you were clumsy, inexperienced, and your technique was awful. Nam Cung Vu Tinh and Liu Engu looked at each other, caught between laughter and helplessness. Fortunately, by now they understood what had actually happened. If someone else walked into the cavern and heard this argument without context, they would absolutely think the two were talking about something far more intimate. Nguy Tac continued coldly. I had already been there for half the day. You were the one who ran over and tried to steal the stone-tailed wall lizards from me. A good man doesn't fight with a woman. I offered to compensate you with spirit stones and you refused. What exactly do you want? Do you want to take off your clothes once in front of me too so we'll be even? You! Han Vivi trembled with rage and pointed at him. Big sister Nam Cung Vu Tinh, listen to the things this pervert is saying. Enough. Nguy Tac, that really was too much. Nam Cung Vu Tinh glared at him, then turned to Han Vivi. Vivi, don't be angry. Let him compensate you for the 2 stone-tailed wall lizards and leave it at that. No, I have to teach him a lesson first. Han Vivi shook her head violently. Teach me a lesson? With your kitten-level skills? Nguy Tac looked at her with open contempt. A coward like you who got chased around by a stone-tailed wall lizard thinks I can't teach him a lesson? Nguy Tac, can't you stop talking? Nam Cung Vu Tinh scolded him softly. Does bullying a little girl make you happy? Keep going and next time I won't help you. Han Vivi had excellent hearing. The moment she heard that, she cried out in disbelief. Big sister Nam Cung Vu Tinh, even you think I'm not a match for this pervert? Nam Cung Vu Tinh froze. For a moment, she had no idea what to say. Han Vivi turned back toward Nguy Tac. Coward, what do you say, dare to fight me? If you lose, then every time you see me from now on, you have to call me auntie. You forced me into this. Nguy Tac snorted. When you lose, you don't need to call me uncle. Just obediently call me good big brother. Don't injure Vivi! Unable to stop the fight, Nam Cung Vu Tinh could only walk over to Nguy Tac and warn him. Then she harvested the 2 fully ripened branches of Jade Cloud Lingzhi, 5th level of the Divine Sea Realm. How did this crazy little beauty advance so fast? Not long ago, she was only at the 4th level. Nguy Tac secretly activated the aura reading art. The moment he looked, he was shocked. 5 bright white divine sea lights shimmered within Han Vivi's body. She had clearly reached the 5th level of the Divine Sea Realm. With any cultivation art, advancement became more difficult at higher levels. And the more powerful the cultivation art, the harder breakthroughs became. The 5 divine seas inside Han Vivi were extraordinarily bright, proving that the art she cultivated was several grades better than Nguy Tac's. Yet while Nguy Tac had remained stuck at the 3rd level for many days without reaching the 4th, Han Vivi had already advanced to the 5th. I'll let you attack first. Han Vivi's fair face carried an expression of contempt. She took out an object shaped like a white seashell. True essence flowed into it. The object transformed into a brilliant shell-shaped shield of white light covered in tadpole-like runes and floated before her. A magical treasure? Nguy Tac was startled. Magical treasures on the Tianhuyan continent were classified into 4 great grades: spirit, arcane, mystic, and immortal. A true magical treasure, even the lowest grade spirit-level defensive treasure, could withstand the offensive spells of an ordinary 4th-level heavenly circuit cultivator. And unless the treasure's physical body was damaged, most genuine magical treasures could continuously release their power as long as the user supplied true essence. That made them completely different from consumable talismans, whose power rapidly faded after activation. Han Vivi's cultivation was already 2 levels higher than Nguy Tac's. If she also possessed a genuine magical treasure, there was no way he could win. Then he relaxed slightly. The unusual white shield did not require Han Vivi to continuously control it with true essence. Its defense seemed to rely mostly on the power stored in the material itself. It was probably only a quasi-spirit-grade artifact, comparable to an imitation magical treasure, not a true spirit-grade magical treasure. Nguy Tac activated his Spirit Heaven Jade Pendant. At the same time, he grasped the Windlord treasure talisman taken from Lam Dao Nat and poured purple true essence into it. A wall of violent wind appeared before him. Han Vivi did not attack. She simply stared at him, clearly intending to keep her word and allow him to strike first. After harvesting the Jade Cloud Lingzhi, Nam Cung Vu Tinh and Liu Ngu moved nervously to one side, roughly between the 2 fighters. If anything went wrong, they were prepared to intervene immediately. A battle between cultivators was always dangerous. Seeing Han Vivi looking down on him, Nguy Tac did not hold back. He threw a fireball talisman directly at the white light shield. Flames crashed over the shield like a waterfall. Nguy Tac's expression became serious. Other than a few slightly blackened marks, the shield did not seem damaged at all. Han Vi swept her hand forward. White energy condensed into a transparent ice dragon about 5 feet long. Whoosh! It crashed into the wind wall before Nguy Tac. Damn! What kind of spell is that? The small ice dragon was instantly shredded into countless fragments by the violent wind. But the freezing energy released from those fragments almost froze Nguy Tac solid. White frost even formed across his eyebrows. Boom! 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 Nguy Tac did not dare pause. He threw fireball talismans at Han Vivi, one after another. Even if they could not break her white light shield, the heat released by the explosions at least kept his body from freezing. The entire cavern became filled with blazing tongues of fire. Where did that pervert get so many fireball talismans? Liu Ngu stared in disbelief from beside Nam Cung Vu Tinh. He was actually the Thiet Sach cultivator assigned to protect Han Vivi over the last 2 days. Nam Cung Vu Tinh had sent someone to deliver the urgent message. Han Vivi had seen it, and after being pestered relentlessly, Liu Ngu had finally been forced to bring her along. Originally, he had assumed Nguy Tac would definitely lose. He knew Han Vivi's cultivation was no weaker than his own, and she possessed many valuable items. Her only real weaknesses were lack of combat experience and limited knowledge of demonic beasts. Otherwise, she would not have needed Thiet Sach's protection at all. She could have traveled alone throughout the 1,000-mile region around Linh Nhac City without much difficulty, but the situation before him now was very different. Old pervert! This was actually Han Vi's first formal fight against another cultivator. She was nervous too. She had never expected Nguy Tac's offense to be this violent. Wheel-sized fireballs crashed down one after another, making her white light shield shake violently. A sea of fire seemed to fill everything in front of her. Slightly panicked, she hurriedly pulled out a tiny but surprisingly heavy piece of bright green bamboo. True essence flowed into it. Green light flared. The small bamboo piece suddenly expanded and transformed into a glowing green bamboo sword. From the outside, Nguy Tac looked overwhelmingly dominant. Fireball talismans flew from his hands one after another. Inside, however, he felt bitter. The white light shield in front of Han Vi possessed defensive power even greater than a second-tier talisman. More than a dozen fireball talismans had struck it, yet there was still no sign of cracking. Another imitation magical treasure? At the same time, Han Vi swung the green bamboo sword. It transformed into a streak of green light. Just sensing the spiritual fluctuations coming from it made Nguy Tac's expression change. Thrust! The green bamboo sword pierced directly through the wind wall. The Spirit Heaven Jade Pendant flashed twice, producing 2 protective barriers in succession. The bamboo sword pierced through both. Its power was no weaker than Lam Dao Nat's imitation magical treasure. Careful! Nam Cung Vu Ting's face went pale and she shouted instinctively. Rip! The green bamboo sword was still some distance from Nguy Tac's chest when its sword light tore open the ordinary blue robe he was wearing. Liu Ngu's expression changed completely. He was already preparing to activate his own magical artifact and intercept the clearly dangerous imitation treasure. Then red light suddenly surged from Nguy Tac's chest. The entire cavern lit up. A vivid fire phoenix nearly 5 feet long appeared in front of him. Whoosh! The fire phoenix moved like a living creature and blocked the green bamboo sword cleanly. You! You disgusting bastard! You stole a female cultivator's underwear and you're actually wearing it! Han Vivi stared at Nguy Tac's chest with enormous eyes. The tear in his outer robe had revealed the women's chest wrap underneath. Stealing a female cultivator's undergarment was already bad enough. Actually putting it on himself? Han Vivi instantly decided that Nguy Tac was far more perverted than she had ever imagined. In her mind, he immediately joined the ranks of those vile cultivators in Linh Nhac City who specialized in stealing beautiful women's underwear. Nam Cung Vu Tinh and Liu Ngu both stared with their mouths open. Damn it, Nguy Tac had worn the Fire Phoenix Undergarment only because he wanted to stay alive. He had never expected it to be exposed this quickly. Seeing the expressions on Han Vivi and Nam Cung Vu Tinh, he wanted to cry. He forced out an awkward smile and hurriedly explained, "What do you mean I stole a female cultivator's underwear? I found this Fire Phoenix Undergarment inside the stomach of a One-Horned Thunder Kui. I didn't have any powerful defensive artifact, so I temporarily put it on." "Who are you trying to fool?" Han Vivi screamed in disgust. "You killed a One-Horned Thunder Kui? And then just happened to find this inside its stomach? If that's true, then I might as well say there's a magical treasure inside the stomach of a stone-tailed wall lizard." She raised one hand, preparing another spell while coordinating with the green bamboo sword to chop this shameless man to pieces. Nguy Tac noticed that even Liu Ngu, who had been watching the spectacle, was nodding as though Han Vivi's reasoning made perfect sense. Nguy Tac suddenly wanted to die. Telling people he had killed a One-Horned Thunder Kui was already difficult to believe. Claiming he had also found a Fire Phoenix Undergarment in its stomach made the story sound completely absurd. White freezing energy gathered in Han Vivi's hand. Nguy Tac ground his teeth and activated another talisman. What the hell? Han Vivi had been halfway through casting her spell when an entire herd of fat pigs suddenly appeared in front of her, happily charging forward. If you were in the middle of a serious duel and suddenly saw a large herd of plump pigs running toward you, snorting as they came, how would you react? Han Vivi froze. The white freezing energy in her hand immediately went out of control and dispersed. Her silver cultivation robe seemed fairly good. This attack shouldn't ruin a beautiful flower, right? Nguy Tac seized the opportunity. He swept his hand forward and released a golden serpent lightning fork. The lightning curved around the edge of the white shield and struck Han Vivi directly. Just as Nguy Tac expected, her silver robe flashed with light and neutralized most of the power. But more than 10 scattered arcs of lightning still passed through and left her body numb. Nguy Tac immediately prepared another golden serpent lightning fork. Enough! Enough! Stop! Nam Cung Vu Tinh still did not completely understand what had happened, but she flashed forward and stood between Han Vivi and Nguy Tac. Everyone could see that Han Vivi had already lost. Nguy Tac might not be able to break her white light shield quickly, but he could continuously use golden serpent lightning to paralyze her while striking around the shield itself. Even without using another fireball talisman, Han Vivi would eventually become incapable of defending herself. Nguy Tac shrugged and stopped attacking. The silver-robed young beauty was extremely attractive. He did not have the heart to keep electrocuting her until her whole body went numb. While the fight paused, he hurriedly pulled his torn outer robe closed and covered the Fire Phoenix Undergarment again. Han Vi's face was pale. Her entire body trembled as she stared at Nguy Tac, half from rage and half from lingering numbness. Seeing the beautiful girl's current state made Nguy Tac feel even more reluctant to bully her. "I'm going to kill you!" Suddenly, Han Vivi screamed and acted as though she intended to fight him to the death. Nam Cung Vu Tinh and Liu Ngu were both startled. "What? You lost and now you refuse to admit it?" Nguy Tac became annoyed too. Was this ever going to end? The moment he said that, Han Vivi clenched her teeth. Tears gathered in her eyes. "Next time I will definitely defeat you." She gave Nguy Tac one last pale, furious look, then turned and ran from the cavern. "I'll go after her. Something might happen if she's alone." Liu Ngu smiled bitterly at Nguy Tac. After saying a quick word to Nam Cung Vu Tinh, he immediately chased after Han Vivi. "There's going to be a next time too?" Nguy Tac silently watched the curvy silver-robed beauty disappear from sight and shook his head. Only he and Nam Cung Vu Tinh remained in the cavern. Nguy Tac gathered all the courage he could find. He was so embarrassed he nearly died trying to force the words out. "I really did kill that One-Horned Thunder Kui in Van Za Valley and find this thing inside it." Nam Cung Vu Tinh acted as though she had not heard him. "We'll split the 2 branches of Jade Cloud Lingzhi evenly. You have the storage treasure pouch, so keep the Wind Spirit Roarer and the Frostblade Mantises for now. Once we return to Linh Nhac City, we'll sell them and divide the proceeds. What do you think?" "Believe me, I'm not a pervert." Nguy Tac thought she still did not believe him and became anxious. "How about I give this to you? Will you stop trying to explain?" Before Nguy Tac could react, Nam Cung Vu Tinh rapped him sharply on the head. "Give that to me? You've already worn it. You really are pig-headed." After gathering the demonic beast corpses inside Stone Silkworm Cavern, Nguy Tac explained how he had killed the One-Horned Thunder Kui and why a herd of pigs had suddenly appeared during his duel with Han VV. Then he and Nam Cung Vu Tinh returned directly to Linh Nhac City through the teleportation formation. After parting from her and returning to his small house in the Western District, Nguy Tac still felt that the entire day had gone terribly wrong. Giving the Fire Phoenix Undergarment to Nam Cung Vu Tinh would certainly have suited her far better than it suited him. But items like that were normally given only between extremely intimate lovers. With their current relationship, presenting it to her would have been wildly inappropriate. Still, Nam Cung Vu Tinh had already brought him major benefits twice. This time, besides the Jade Cloud Lingzhi, he had obtained the corpse of a wind spirit roarer and nearly 30 frostblade mantises. The mantis bodies had been badly damaged and would not sell for much themselves. But for demonic beasts at the 3rd tier and above, the most valuable parts were usually the demonic cores used in alchemy. Each frostblade mantis core was worth around 50 low-grade spirit stones. 30 of them together would be worth roughly 1,500. Divided evenly with Nam Cung Vu Tinh, each person would receive about 750 low-grade spirit stones. She had brought him that much profit. Yet he had given her almost nothing in return. She even trusted him enough to let him hold all the demonic beast corpses. Nguy Tac felt genuinely embarrassed. Since she would not accept the Fire Phoenix Undergarment anyway, he decided that next time he would give her 2 illusory light talismans. Those were extremely useful too. Against both the One-Horned Thunder Kui and Han VV, an illusion had played a decisive role. So that little beauty is Ko Na's junior sister? No wonder she's so rich. She was throwing talismans around like trash just to deal with stone-tailed wall lizards. Through Nam Cung Vu Tinh, Nguy Tac had finally learned Han VV's identity. Naturally, he knew how powerful the treasure pavilion was in Linh Nhac City. Thinking about the little beauty's tear-filled eyes, and remembering that she still planned to come after him made his head hurt. What did that beauty want with you? Why are you only coming back this late? The moment Nguy Tac returned home, the old man in green floated out of the ghost-nurturing jar and asked, "Haha! Old man, look what I got!" Nguy Tac immediately became smug again. He pulled out the storage treasure pouch. True essence flowed into it. A branch of Jade Cloud Lingzhi, glowing with white light, floated upward inside a stream of golden radiance. By now, Nguy Tac had become quite skilled at using the pouch. At first, whenever he wanted one item, he would dump everything out and search through it. After using the treasure several times, he discovered that he could inspect the storage space with his spiritual awareness and directly call out whatever he wanted. Of course, cultivators accustomed to storage treasures had always known this. No normal person carrying such an artifact would empty the entire thing every time they wanted to retrieve one object. Jade Cloud Lingzhi? The old man in green needed only one glance. His expression changed dramatically. "How did you get this? What is it?" Nguy Tac was puzzled by how serious the old man had suddenly become. Nam Cung Vu Tinh sent word to me. She discovered it in a cavern. A wind spirit roarer was guarding it. We killed the beast. There were 2 branches in total, so we split them evenly. 2 branches? The old man became even more agitated. "Where is that cavern? Take me there immediately." "Take you back to the cavern? Why?" Nguy Tac stared at him. Stone spirit milk. The green light around the old man's body flickered violently, showing how excited he was. "One of my former masters and I once discovered that wherever Jade Cloud Lingzhi grows, there is usually stone spirit milk nearby. Just like ice mist fruit tends to grow above cold jade. Stone spirit milk is a treasure naturally condensed from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. For cultivation, it's even more effective than pills refined from demonic cores. Its spiritual energy can merge with true essence almost instantly. If you're lucky enough to find even a little, you might immediately break through to the 4th level of the Divine Sea Realm." "What? Something that good exists?" Nguy Tac was stunned. Right now, every time he cultivated, refining the spiritual energy from a spirit stone required a substantial amount of time. Even if he cultivated day and night without rest, the most he could process in a day was the spiritual energy contained in roughly 10 low-grade spirit stones. If that amount of spiritual energy could be refined in an instant, his cultivation speed would increase by an unbelievable amount. "Let's go, take me back there." At that moment, Nguy Tac's mind contained almost nothing except the desire to raise his cultivation. After a brief instant of shock, he stuffed the Jade Cloud Lingzhi away, slipped the ghost-nurturing jar into his robe, and rushed back out. While sprinting toward the teleportation formation, he asked the old man, "Does every spiritual medicine grow next to some other treasure?" "There aren't many records about things like that anymore. Not every spiritual medicine grows beside a treasure of heaven and earth," the old man replied. "Some simply require very specific environments. Ice rock flowers grow in places of extreme cold where violent winds are dense. Scarlet flame fruits grow in regions of magma and fire. Other spiritual medicines do grow from treasures, but while maturing they continuously absorb the spiritual energy around them. By the time a cultivator or demonic beast discovers the mature plant, the underlying treasure may already have been completely drained and reduced to ordinary stone. It's true that many valuable medicines tend to have demonic beasts guarding them. But the place where that Jade Cloud Lingzhi grew might not have any stone spirit milk left. There may have been only a small amount to begin with, and the Lingzhi could have absorbed it all. We're only going back to test our luck. Here? More than half an hour later, Nguy Tac had returned to the gourd-shaped chamber inside Stone Silkworm Cavern with the old man in green. The old man floated before Nguy Tac's chest and carefully examined the stalactite column hanging from ceiling to floor, nearly as thick as a grown man's body. Here, Nguy Tac confirmed. He clearly remembered where the Jade Cloud Lingzhi had been growing. There was no possibility of mistake. Use your azure water blade and slowly cut upward from the place where the Jade Cloud Lingzhi was growing. The old man instructed, narrowing his eyes at the stalactite column. Slowly, if there is stone spirit milk, it should be somewhere above that point. Got it. Nguy Tac had personally watched Diep Tiu Chin excavate the cold jade, so he already had some experience with careful cutting. Whoosh! An azure water blade slowly shaved away the outer layer of the stalactite. He removed less than an inch of stone. A rich fragrance immediately burst out. Inside the rock was a crystalline tube about as thick as a finger, almost like a hollow jade pipe hidden within the stalactite. Nguy Tac's azure water blade had nicked it. Milky white mist began leaking from the tiny opening. Not good, the stone spirit milk is seeping out. The old man in green's expression changed. It's too close to the surface. You already cut through it. Hurry. Once it escapes, it'll turn into spiritual energy and disperse. You won't be able to collect it. The old man had not expected the stone spirit milk to lie so close to the outer shell. At this rate, even if no cultivator or demonic beast had ever discovered it, the liquid would probably have leaked out naturally within a year. But before the old man could say anything else, his mouth fell open. Nguy Tac's reaction was even faster. The instant he saw the white mist escaping, his expression changed and he threw himself onto the ground. Then he pressed his mouth directly over the hole and sucked as hard as he could. The milky white liquid and the mist around it were both drawn straight into his stomach. Damn! Nguy Tac did not even have time to notice what the stone spirit milk tasted like. An overwhelming torrent of spiritual energy erupted from his stomach and surged into his meridians. It felt as though the white mist had transformed into a raging river inside his body. I'm going to explode! The terrifying thought appeared instantly. Circulate your cultivation art. Guide the true essence now! The old man shouted. Nguy Tac jolted back to his senses. Ignoring the wet cave floor, he dropped into a seated position. Countless raised lines appeared beneath his skin as the violent spiritual energy raced through him. The energy quickly converged inward. Only after roughly the time needed to burn an incense stick did the terrifying swelling gradually subside. A smooth radiance appeared across Nguy Tac's entire body. Crack! A soft sound came from somewhere inside him, as though an invisible barrier had shattered. Nguy Tac opened his mouth and expelled a breath of turbid purple energy. 4 flashes of violet light appeared across his body. Finally, the 4th level of the Divine Sea Realm. Nguy Tac inhaled deeply and opened his eyes. His face was almost crazed with joy. Inside his body, true essence now spun within 4 purple divine seas. Stone spirit milk, a treasure condensed from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, something almost completely forgotten by the present cultivation world, was truly astonishing. Originally, even if Nguy Tac cultivated day and night without rest, he still would have needed many more days before he could break through. Yet one mouthful of stone spirit milk had immediately opened a 4th divine sea and advanced him to the 4th level. Remembering the sensation of that violent spiritual energy pouring into him and rapidly merging with his true essence, Nguy Tac smacked his lips. Then he crawled back over and pressed his mouth to the hole again. If there were just a little more stone spirit milk, maybe he could jump directly to the 5th level of the Divine Sea Realm. At that level, he would be able to use even more powerful spells. He would no longer count as a low-level wandering cultivator. Unfortunately, he was deeply disappointed. The hollow crystalline tube was empty. Not a single drop of stone spirit milk remained. Old man, is this crystal useful for anything? Still unwilling to give up, Nguy Tac carefully used an azure water blade to cut the crystalline tube open a little farther. Inside were only glittering grains that looked like salt. That's just ordinary glass crystal, useless. The old man shook his head regretfully. This stalactite was probably originally a stone pillar. Later, layers of mineral deposits formed over it. The stone spirit milk collected inside this hollow crystal vein. Nguy Tac looked at the Jade Cloud Lingzhi in his hand with hungry eyes. Can this thing increase cultivation too? The greatest taboo in cultivation is impatience, the old man said coldly. It's similar to a demonic core. A demonic core contains enormous spiritual energy, but a cultivator can't simply swallow one and refine it directly. Jade Cloud Lingzhi is the same as most spiritual medicines. During its growth, it condenses many unique medicinal properties. A demonic beast can swallow Jade Cloud Lingzhi and use it to strengthen its demonic core. But if you swallow that branch directly, then no matter how many treasures you're wearing, you won't walk out of this cave alive. I was being too impatient. Nguy Tac's eyes flickered. He took a deep breath, nodded, and forced himself to calm down. The old man in green looked at him with a trace of surprise. It was rare to see Nguy Tac this serious. Previously, the old man had assumed that the brat cultivated so desperately, mainly because he wanted to chase after a legendary beauty like Thuy Ling Ni, but the change in Nguy Tac's expression made him suddenly realize there were more important reasons behind that obsession with becoming stronger. You don't need to be disappointed, the old man said. Your luck was already quite good. The stone spirit milk helped you break through to the 4th level. Going from the 2nd level to the 4th as quickly as you have is already extraordinary. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Now that you've reached this realm, there are certain things I can finally tell you, and I guarantee they're no less useful than stone spirit milk. But although we're working together, and I recognize you as my master, there are some matters we should be honest about. Tell me something first. Other than Thuy Ling Ni, why are you pushing yourself so hard to cultivate? To survive. For once, Nguy Tac did not wear his usual shameless grin. He gave a bitter smile. If I don't become stronger, there's no way to truly survive in Linh Nhac City. And I want to go beyond the Heaven's Dome to the place where something happened to my parents. At the very least, I want to know why they died. You know they met with disaster beyond the Heaven's Dome? I don't know for certain. Later, I managed to find out that they left Linh Nhac City through the northern route and passed beyond the Heaven's Dome. I once went there to look, but my cultivation was too low. I couldn't go outside. Nguy Tac sighed. All right, I've told you what I needed to tell you. Now you should tell me whatever you've been hiding. Very well. The old man nodded. I'll teach you how to refine a pill called the Heaven Mending Pill. Heaven Mending Pill? What kind of pill is it? Can it quickly restore true essence, or directly increase cultivation? Nguy Tac's eyes immediately brightened again. Neither. The old man looked faintly proud. Its effect is far more important. It can continuously temper the physical body and strengthen the divine seas. What does that mean? Cultivation arts are divided by grade. Once a divine sea reaches the limit determined by that cultivation art, it stops expanding. When enough true essence accumulates, another divine sea opens and the cultivator advances one level. The old man continued patiently. The higher the grade of the cultivation art, the larger each divine sea becomes. It can contain more true essence, and that true essence becomes denser and more refined. That's why two cultivators at the same realm can have completely different strength if one practices a superior art. The Heaven Mending Pill continuously strengthens all of your divine seas. Think of it the way certain heavenly medicines can strengthen a demonic beast's core and allow a 3rd-tier beast to display strength beyond the 4th tier. In simple terms, my Heaven Mending Pill can force that garbage cultivation art of yours to keep advancing in grade. Eventually, it might even surpass a heaven-grade cultivation art. A pill that upgrades a cultivation art? Nguy Tac's pupils contracted. Old man, are you sure you're not messing with me? If you don't want to know, forget it. The old man smiled. What? Only an idiot wouldn't want to know. It's just... Isn't this pill absurdly powerful? Nguy Tac understood very clearly how large the difference between low-grade and high-grade true essence arts could be. Back when he could not even afford enough key recovery powder, he had to carefully count how many azure water blades he could cast. If he had practiced a heaven-grade cultivation art, even at the 2nd level of the Divine Sea Realm, he could probably have fired hundreds of azure water blades without worrying about running dry. And now the old man was telling him that a pill could continuously strengthen his divine seas until the purple mystic true art and art Nguy Tac had long wanted to replace might eventually surpass heaven-grade techniques. What kind of concept was that? Absurd? Of course it's absurd, the old man said. But it only works after long-term use, and 1 or 2 tens of thousands of years ago, the ingredients were extremely difficult to gather. He looked at Nguy Tac with satisfaction. All I can say is this. A low-level wandering cultivator regarded as trash by everyone else, together with a bottom-rate artifact spirit like me, may have finally entered an era meant for us. Nguy Tac took a deep breath. If this pill keeps raising the grade of my cultivation art, won't it also affect cultivation speed? Naturally. If your cultivation art becomes stronger, the divine seas become larger. Filling them will take more time. The old man nodded, but I can guarantee one thing. Even so, your cultivation speed will still be at least one level faster than someone practicing a heaven-grade art normally. That's because the heaven-mending pill doesn't only strengthen the divine seas. It continuously improves the physical body as well. In effect, it raises your cultivation talent and your ability to absorb spiritual energy. Nguy Tac ground his teeth. If you knew about something this good, why did you wait until I reached the 4th level of the divine sea realm before telling me? Simple. The old man's answer was so straightforward that Nguy Tac rolled his eyes. The pill only works once a cultivator reaches at least the 4th level of the divine sea realm. What ingredients do I need? Silver moongrass, purple voidgrass, 7-leaf orchid, cold dew root, and the demonic core of a 3rd-tier azure armored beetle. Azure armored beetle cores? Nguy Tac calculated silently. Among those ingredients, only the core of the 3rd-tier upper-rank azure armored beetle was somewhat expensive. The other materials were fairly ordinary, and azure armored beetles were no longer especially rare. If necessary, he could simply spend spirit stones to buy the cores. Nowadays, the azure armored beetle core is the only ingredient that costs much, the old man said, seeming to read his thoughts. It's ironic. Azure armored beetles are only 3rd-tier beasts, but 1 or 2 tens of thousands of years ago, they were almost hunted to extinction. Finding a core was extremely difficult. I never expected them to reproduce so successfully in this era. Apparently, you can even find them inside the Heaven's Dome now. The old man paused. Let's go. Return home and gather all the ingredients. Refining heaven-mending pills requires an earth fire furnace. Once we return, I'll teach you how to refine them. But controlling the fire is difficult. Don't expect to succeed on the first attempt. Alright, but wait a moment. Nguy Tac nodded, then quickly pulled out his storage treasure pouch. What are you doing? The old man did not understand why Nguy Tac was taking out the golden silk talisman brush and the materials needed to refine an illusory light talisman. Then Nguy Tac began removing nearly 30 frostblade mantis corpses from the pouch. I'm refining an illusory light talisman, he explained while arranging the mantis corpses into fierce, threatening poses. I only managed to break through to the 4th level so quickly because Nam Cung Vu Tinh discovered this place. I want to refine one and give it to her. An illusion of 30 frostblade mantises should frighten plenty of opponents. My little stone house is too small to fit all these bodies, so I'll record the image here. The old man stared at the corpses. Damn, half these mantises are full of holes from the wind spirit roarer's feathers. Won't anyone immediately realize they're fake? That's fine. I can touch them up. I'm good at this kind of thing. The old man became even more speechless when Nguy Tac pulled out some unknown white substance and started painting over the holes in the mantises' bodies. This brat. The whole process was rather pointless and ridiculous. Yet for some reason, the old man increasingly felt that Nguy Tac was different from most wandering cultivators. This time, instead of mocking him, he quietly watched while Nguy Tac refined the illusory light talisman. A wind spirit roarer? Frostblade mantises? Inside a spacious honored guest room of the Kim Ngoc Pavilion, 2 brocade-clad attendants stood respectfully behind Nguy Tac. One of them wore robes embroidered with golden thread, clearly showing that his status was higher than that of the ordinary attendants. It was Lu Tuong, the young man who had previously delivered auction proceeds and who often handled important guests. When Nguy Tac began removing the wind spirit roarer and a large pile of frostblade mantises from his storage treasure pouch, Lu Tuong and the other attendants were visibly surprised. How many low-grade spirit stones do you think these are worth? Nguy Tac asked after leisurely taking a sip of good tea. Lu Tuong carefully examined the corpses. The wind spirit roarer was fully mature. Its value is around 500 low-grade spirit stones. As for the frostblade mantises, although the bodies look intact, some of these damaged areas appear to have been painted over. Nguy Tac immediately broke into a sweat. I painted those myself. I wasn't trying to deceive your pavilion. Just value them however you normally would. I wasn't suggesting otherwise. Lu Tuong remained completely professional. The frostblade mantises still have their demonic cores, and several body parts can be used in artifact refining. Altogether, I would value them at 1,600 low-grade spirit stones. What does Senior think? On the Tianhuian continent, lower-level cultivators commonly addressed stronger or more senior cultivators as Senior. Lu Tuong's cultivation clearly was not below Nguy Tac's, yet he still used the respectful title. That alone showed how professional the Kim Ngoc Pavilion was. Nguy Tac had originally estimated that everything might sell for 1,800 low-grade spirit stones at most. The actual offer was 2,100. Naturally, he was extremely satisfied. Agreed. After saying that, Nguy Tac hesitated slightly. Then he pulled out a thin object glowing with red light. It was the Fire Phoenix Undergarment, the very thing that had caused Han Vi to label him a deranged pervert. A Fire Phoenix treasure garment? Surprise flashed across Lu Tuong's face. Senior, do you wish to consign this to the Kim Nok Pavilion for auction? No. Nguy Tac coughed awkwardly. I heard that Senior Zhang of the Kim Nok Pavilion is an artifact refiner. I want to add an outer layer of clothing over this Fire Phoenix Undergarment without affecting its defensive effect. Can that be done? You mean adding an outer protective layer to the treasure garment? Lu Tuang was remarkably professional. He did not laugh. He simply nodded. That isn't difficult. What kind of material would Senior like to use? Do you have any special requirements? Just increase the protection. At the very least, make the outer layer difficult to cut apart so the Fire Phoenix garment underneath won't be exposed. Nguy Tac thought for a moment. As for appearance, make it as ordinary as possible. The more it looks like worthless trash with no defensive ability, the better. Even the thoroughly professional Lu Tuang broke into a faint sweat. The Fire Phoenix Undergarment was designed for women, so modifying it into a normal robe was already unusual enough. But most cultivators wanted their magical robes to look as impressive and luxurious as possible. This man wanted his treasure garment to look like garbage. Was he deliberately trying to hide his strength? Still, Lu Tuang nodded. It can be done. The Kim Nok Pavilion has some black wind mulberry silk. It won't interfere with the Fire Phoenix garment's original power. In fact, it can produce an additional layer of protective wind and raise the garment's defensive level. When the modification is complete, we can add an ordinary blue-gray outer fabric. It will look no different from the kind of clothing Senior is wearing now. The cost should be roughly 350 low-grade spirit stones. Fine. Nguy Tac nodded. Then he asked, how many Azure Armored Beetle demonic cores do you currently have? And how much is each one? Azure Armored Beetle cores? We currently have 15. Each is worth 60 low-grade spirit stones. I'll take all 15. He looks like an ordinary low-level cultivator. Why does he keep bringing in things at this level? His rate of earning spirit stones might not even be matched by some heavenly circuit cultivators. Outside the Kim Nok Pavilion, after seeing Nguy Tac off, one brocade-clad attendant quietly spoke to Lu Tuang. And why would he buy so many Azure Armored Beetle cores? Could there be something suspicious about him? Don't forget the rules of the Kim Nok Pavilion. Lu Tuang's expression immediately became cold. No matter what secrets a customer has, he is still our customer. It is not our place to investigate or speculate. He glanced at the attendant. The cultivation world is filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Some apparently low-level cultivators are not necessarily inferior to high-level ones. Certain people even possess secret listening techniques. If that customer had heard what you just said, he would not be pleased. Be more careful in the future. Yes, the attendant immediately felt a chill and hurriedly lowered his head. Damn it, I'm poor again. After walking some distance from the Kim Nok Pavilion, Nguy Tac shook his head miserably while pouring true essence into a communication jade talisman. The Wind Spirit Roarer and Frostblade Mantises had sold for 2,100 low-grade spirit stones. After splitting the amount evenly with Nam Cung Vu Tinh, Nguy Tac's share was a little over 1,000. Combined with the roughly 700 he already possessed, his wealth had briefly risen to around 1,800 low-grade spirit stones. Then modifying the Fire Phoenix garment and purchasing 15 Azure Armored Beetle cores cost him 1,250. Just like that, he was back down to 550. He still possessed several valuable items, including the Jade Cloud Lingzhi and the white jade box that had now been confirmed to be a spirit-preserving jade box. But the old man in green insisted that those things would be extremely useful in the future, so Nguy Tac refused to sell them. For an ordinary 4th-level Divine Sea Wandering Cultivator, 550 low-grade spirit stones would be an astonishing fortune. But the more Nguy Tac saw of the cultivation world, especially after attending an auction, the more painfully aware he became of how poor he was compared with truly powerful cultivators. He could barely afford anything anymore. Once the Kim Nok Pavilion finished modifying the Fire Phoenix garment, its defense should rise another level. If Lu Tuang's estimate was correct, it would approach a genuine low-grade spirit-level magical treasure, and might withstand the spell of a 4th-level Heavenly Circuit cultivator. For Nguy Tac, that should solve his defensive problem for quite some time. The Golden Serpent Lightning Art was also fairly powerful. Its lightning could paralyze enemies, so that technique would remain useful for a while. His offensive situation, however, was different. The Azure Water Blade had become too weak. For serious attacks, he still relied on Fireball Talismans and other offensive talismans he purchased. But using 2nd-tier talismans or higher in every fight was far too expensive. Sooner or later, he needed to find a truly powerful offensive spell to cultivate. Then there were places that simply could not be reached on foot. He still owned no proper flying artifact or magical treasure, much less an offensive imitation treasure or genuine magical treasure. If he wanted to purchase everything he needed for the next stage of his cultivation, forget 550 low-grade spirit stones. Nguy Tac was not even sure 50,000 would be enough. And now he also needed a constant supply of ingredients for heaven-mending pills. According to the old man in green, those pills were essentially another consumable cultivation resource, just like spirit stones. If Nguy Tac used them continuously, the expense would be enormous. What are you staring at? Nam Cung Vu Tinh had spotted Nguy Tac from far away beneath the largest public notice board in the northern market. When she saw him waiting there, warmth briefly rose in her heart. She could guess why he had called her. These days, there were not many cultivators who valued something besides cold, lifeless piles of spirit stones. But once she got closer and saw what Nguy Tac was doing, that warmth immediately turned into irritation. She snapped at him. Nguy Tac had not noticed her approaching. He was secretly staring at a large-chested female cultivator in red nearby. Huh? I wasn't looking at anything. When did you get here? I didn't even see you. Nguy Tac's face reddened slightly, but he still put on an innocent expression. Then he quickly pulled out a beast hide pouch. Everything sold for 2,100 low-grade spirit stones. There are 210 mid-grade spirit stones in here. I took 105. Count the rest yourself. I won't be in Linh Nhac City for the next 2 days, Nam Cung Vu Tinh said, glaring at him. Without even checking the amount, she put the pouch away. If you need anything, wait until I return. Even if you use the communication jade talismans, I probably won't receive the signal. You won't be in Linh Nhac City for 2 days? Where are you going? Someone in Thiet Sash discovered traces of a heart-eating worm. Nam Cung Vu Tinh expression became serious. But dealing with a heart-eating worm requires enough powdered bone from white-scaled beasts. Over the next few days, we're going to hunt those beasts and prepare the powder. A heart-eating worm? A 5th-tier demonic beast? Nguy Tac sucked in a cold breath. Heart-eating worms were infamous across the Xianxia continent. They resembled enormous larvae. Not only could they release golden halos with terrifying offensive power, their bodies could remain invisible for long periods. Their mouths contained a long tube tipped with a sharp needle. They preferred to silently approach cultivators, pierce straight through the skull, and drink the brain marrow as an appetizer. Only white-scaled beast bone powder could react with their skin and force them to reveal their true forms, preventing them from maintaining complete transparency. Unfortunately, white-scaled beasts were themselves 4th-tier demonic beasts. Most cultivators did not casually carry their bone powder around. Because of that, even if a heart-eating worm failed to ambush its target, a lone cultivator below the 2nd level of the Heavenly Circuit realm would still have almost no chance of surviving an encounter. That sounds extremely dangerous, Nguy Tac said despite himself. We've made proper preparations. There shouldn't be a problem. Seeing that he was genuinely worried about her, Nam Cung Vu Tinh felt slightly warm inside. Nguy Tac thought about it. Thiet Sash was one of the strongest organizations in Linh Nhac City. How could a little wandering cultivator like him compare with them? So he nodded and took out 2 illusory light talismans. Here, these are for you. What are they? Illusory light talismans. Use them carefully. They're difficult to refine, and once too many people know the trick, they become less effective. Nguy Tac explained. One creates the illusion of 30 frostblade mantises. The other creates a wind spirit roarer. Obviously, they're all fake. They're only useful for frightening or distracting an opponent. Nam Cung Vu Ting's lips moved slightly, but she did not say anything. Take some fireball talismans too. Nguy Tac was greedy for spirit stones all the way down to his bones. Yet for some reason, even though he knew Nam Cung Vu Tinh would be hunting with other Thiet Sash cultivators, the thought of her leaving made him pull out a large handful of fireball talismans and stuff them into her hands. Damn it, I went soft for one moment. Do you know how much work it takes to refine that many fireball talismans? Nguy Tac screamed internally as he watched Nam Cung Vu Tinh leave. But despite the complaining in his head, this time he did not actually feel much regret. After watching her disappear from sight, he headed farther into northern Linh Nhac City. The strongest marketplaces in the city, such as the Kim Ngok Pavilion, were concentrated in the southern district. The free market in the north was mostly filled with smaller shops, like the old Fox's store Nguy Tac used to frequent. However, the Xianxia continent traditionally treated north as the superior direction. Linh Nhac City itself stretched from north to south along the mountain terrain. The northern district occupied the highest ground. At the very top of the mountain stood powerful restrictions surrounding the mountain gate of the Tien Not sect. Ordinary cultivators could not enter. Above the free market were rows of small stone residences, each far more elegant than Nguy Tac's miserable little house in the western district. These were residences for cultivators. In simple terms, western Linh Nhac City was where the poor lived. and where low-level wandering cultivators gathered. Northern Linh Nhac City was where stronger wandering cultivators tended to reside. The higher the residence stood on the mountain, the better the environment and cultivation conditions. Naturally, the monthly rent rose just as sharply. For Nguy Tac, the most important matter now was refining heaven-mending pills. After purchasing 15 azure armored beetle cores from the Kim Nok Pavilion, he had gathered almost every required ingredient. Only one thing remained: an earth fire furnace. Cultivators with extremely high cultivation could directly power alchemy furnaces or artifact furnaces with their own true essence. Stronger cultivators who knew true fire techniques could even refine ordinary pills and artifacts directly with spiritual fire. Nguy Tac's cultivation was too low, and he did not know any true fire art. If he wanted to refine heaven-mending pills, he had no choice but to rely on an earth fire furnace. That was why he had come to northern Linh Nhac City. He intended to rent a residence that included one. Several sects maintained restricted areas in the north. Before now, Nguy Tac rarely came beyond the free market, so he had to ask several cultivators for directions before locating Not Tam Hall, the Thian Not sect office responsible for renting cultivator residences. He followed a flight of 10 unmarked stone steps and saw a 2-story hall. Like the Thian Not sect buildings that house teleportation formations throughout the city, it was painted in a bright golden color and looked impressively imposing. Third level of the Divine Sea Realm, probably outer disciples of the Thian Not sect. When Nguy Tac entered Not Tam Hall, he saw 2 Thian Not disciples wearing ordinary blue cultivation robes, along with several other people dressed in various styles. They all appeared to be cultivators. Nguy Tac casually used the aura reading art. Only a middle-aged cultivator wearing mystic iron armor possessed cultivation 1 level higher than his own, at the 5th level of the Divine Sea Realm. The others were at his level or below. Even the 2 Thian Not disciples responsible for receiving guests were only 3rd level Divine Sea cultivators. Several visitors were handing spirit stones to a short, fat Thian Not disciple, apparently paying rent for their residences. Seeing Nguy Tac enter, another Thian Not disciple with a slightly pointed face and sharp, intelligent eyes walked over. "May I ask what brings this brother to Not Tam Hall?" Nguy Tac understood that this place operated much like any other business. At an ordinary shop, one hand paid spirit stones while the other received talismans, pills, or magical artifacts. Here, the spirit stones purchased living space and cultivation conditions. So he asked politely and directly, "I would like to rent a residence equipped with an earth fire furnace." A residence with an earth fire furnace? The moment Nguy Tac said it, several cultivators nearby turned to look at him. Such residences were expensive. Anyone capable of paying the monthly rent was clearly not ordinary. The cultivators present probably earned decent amounts themselves, yet none could afford a place with an earth fire furnace. The sharp-faced Thian Not disciple also looked slightly doubtful. "Brother requires an earth fire furnace? We currently have 2 residences available. One includes a spiritual field for growing medicines, the other does not. The residence with the spiritual field costs 80 low-grade spirit stones per month. The one without it costs 50. Which would you prefer?" Nguy Tac hesitated. A spiritual field would certainly be convenient. Certain medicinal plants could be transplanted after harvesting and kept alive there. But he no longer had that many spirit stones to spare, and he currently lacked the ability to properly cultivate spiritual herbs anyway, so he decided to choose the 50-stone residence. "I'll take the one costing 50 low-grade spirit stones per month." But before the words left his mouth, a cold voice sounded from behind him. "I'll take the residence costing 50 low-grade spirit stones." Nguy Tac turned. A thin, middle-aged cultivator in a red cultivation robe had appeared behind him at some point. His face looked perpetually gloomy and irritable. "It's him?" Nguy Tac recognized the man. He had seen this cultivator at the auction in Lang Tu Pavilion. The man had bid as high as 800 low-grade spirit stones for the silver steel essence, then backed down after becoming wary of the mysterious person in an honored guest room on the 2nd floor. "What? Do you have an objection?" Seeing Nguy Tac staring, the red-robed cultivator looked at him coldly. 6 streams of red spiritual light suddenly appeared across his body. The 6 lights were connected by thin threads of radiance. A cold and powerful pressure spread through the hall. A heavenly circuit cultivator. The other cultivators inside Not Tam Hall immediately changed expression. This fierce-looking man was actually a first-level heavenly circuit cultivator. By deliberately revealing his cultivation, he made sure everyone understood that fact. "Senior." The 2 Thian Nat disciples immediately became respectful. Even the disciple who had been speaking with Nguy Tac changed his tone. "Senior wishes to rent the residence with the earth fire furnace? Naturally, there is no problem." As he spoke, he glanced at Nguy Tac. The meaning was obvious. A cultivator like Nguy Tac should know when to step aside rather than compete with a heavenly circuit expert. Damn it. Technically, Nguy Tac had arrived first. If he insisted and caused a dispute, higher-ranking members of the Tian Nhat sect might intervene, and the residence could still be given to him. But this hostile Heavenly Circuit cultivator might secretly retaliate afterward. With Nguy Tac's current strength, he definitely could not defeat the man in a direct fight, and judging from the man's behavior at the auction and his current desire for an earth-fire furnace, he might be an artifact refiner, or even a flying sword cultivator. If so, his combat ability could be several times more dangerous than his realm suggested. Faced with someone he could not yet afford to provoke, Nguy Tac swallowed his anger. Someday, if the opportunity came, he would definitely make this bastard regret it. Seeing Nguy Tac lower his head and remain silent, the red-robed cultivator assumed he was frightened like everyone else. He gave a smug, cold laugh, paid 50 low-grade spirit stones, received his access jade token, and left Nhat Tam Hall. There's still one residence remaining. Does brother want it? The moment the red-robed cultivator disappeared, the sharp-faced Tian Nhat disciple hurriedly turned back to Nguy Tac. I'll take it. There was no longer any choice. Nguy Tac immediately paid 80 low-grade spirit stones, accepted the access token, listened to a few instructions about the residence, then left Nhat Tam Hall without looking back. From a distance, the residence seemed hidden among dense trees and flowers. But as Nguy Tac followed the mountain path closer, thick mist filled his vision until he could no longer see the buildings inside. A residence with both an earth-fire furnace and a spiritual field was considered quite good even in northern Linh Nhac City. Nguy Tac continued uphill. After passing 5 or 6 other residences with stone stairways leading toward them, he finally reached the one he had rented. Before him lay a quiet grove covered in pale spiritual mist. A path paved with smooth white pebbles disappeared into the trees. Beside it stood a black stone stele engraved with the ancient character for Earth. Beneath it was the same number carved into Nguy Tac's jade token, 23. If the Tian Nhat sect ranks residences the way cultivation arts are ranked Heaven, Earth, Mystic, Yellow, then this place would be second grade. Nguy Tac pressed jade token against the black stele. Light flashed from the stone. The spiritual mist ahead immediately parted. Damn. The moment he stepped inside, Nguy Tac felt his mood improve dramatically. More than half the irritation caused by the red-robed cultivator vanished. The residence was actually a small mountain valley. Not only was it filled with flowers and plants, it was extraordinarily quiet. A small waterfall flowed down one cliff and formed a clear pond only several zhang across. Fish swam lazily through the water. Beside the pond lay a modest spiritual field. Built against the cliff was a small courtyard residence with a central room and 2 side wings. Compared with Nguy Tac's miserable stone house in the Western District, this place was better by an absurd amount. The several mu spiritual field had been divided into many separate sections. Different types of spiritual light shimmered over each one, clearly showing that several formations had been arranged there. When Nguy Tac stepped into the field, some areas felt scorching hot like midsummer. Others radiated bitter cold and were covered in thick ice. Still others were dark, damp, and humid like deep caves. Different spiritual medicines required different growing environments. This field could simulate more than 10 distinct conditions. It was quite impressive. Passing through the field, Nguy Tac entered the courtyard. A small garden occupied the center in the style of a traditional 4-sided compound. There was a main hall, a study, a sleeping room, and a quiet cultivation chamber with excellent sound isolation. The floor of the cultivation chamber was covered by a soft carpet woven from silver thread grass. The chamber stood directly beside the mountainside. A heavy stone door had been cut into the cliff wall. Nguy Tac pushed it open and followed a tunnel for more than 10 steps. Hot air suddenly washed over him. 2 rooms lay ahead. The first was empty and roughly 30 zhang across. The hard stone walls were covered in marks left by spell impacts. It was clearly a testing room where cultivators could experiment with the power of spells and artifacts. The second room was what Nguy Tac truly needed, the Earth-Fire Furnace Chamber. The room was square and about 7 or 8 zhang across. Aside from a stone table on the left side near the entrance, the only object inside was a bronze Earth-Fire furnace standing in the center, roughly half a man's height. Its 4 legs were carved with scale patterns and shaped like Keelan claws. Heat continuously rose from the round furnace opening. Across the lid were 18 greenish fire nozzles arranged in an intricate pattern. No wonder this residence costs 80 low-grade spirit stones a month. I wonder what a heaven-grade residence looks like. Standing in the Earth-Fire chamber, which could be used for either alchemy or artifact refining, Nguy Tac could not help sighing. A spiritual field, an Earth-Fire furnace. If the defensive restrictions around the residence were slightly stronger, this place would practically qualify as a private cultivation cave. Cultivating here was incomparably more comfortable than living in his tiny stone house in the Western District. But Nguy Tac had not rented this place to enjoy himself. For someone like him, 80 low-grade spirit stones every month still made his heart ache. It was still daytime, and the old man in green was resting inside the ghost nurturing jar. Nguy Tac did not waste his time. After admiring the residence for a while, he returned to the quiet cultivation chamber, took out a mid-grade spirit stone, closed his eyes, and cultivated. He had already used the storage treasure pouch to move everything from his old stone house here. Even the 4 paintings of Tui Lin Ni had come with him. But throughout the day, he practiced only the purple mystic true art. He did not take out the golden silk talisman brush or refine any talismans. The old man in green had warned him that alchemy consumed no less mental energy than talisman refining. Once night fully fell, Nguy Tac allowed the old man to emerge from the ghost nurturing jar and led him into the earthfire chamber, an azure-toed earthfire furnace. Barely acceptable. The old man glanced at the bronze furnace and curled his lip. Before you refine anything, you need to familiarize yourself with its fire intensity. Nguy Tac nodded. Following the instructions given by the Thien Knot disciples, he poured true essence into one of the fire nozzles on the bronze furnace lid. Puff! Damn! Nguy Tac jumped slightly. A dark red tongue of flame erupted instantly. The sharp, fiery smell of earthfire filled the entire chamber. So this is earthfire drawn up from a subterranean fire vein? The heat inside that oil-like flame was many times greater than the fire produced by a fireball talisman. Fortunately, the flame itself was extremely stable. It condensed into a single steady stream burning directly above the center of the furnace opening. Nguy Tac poured true essence into the nozzle again. The light on it faded. The flame vanished. There were 18 nozzles in total. That meant the furnace could produce 18 different levels or combinations of heat. Seeing that Nguy Tac had become familiar with the azure-toed earthfire furnace, the old man in green spoke in a low voice. Start with 5 nozzles, then place the pill furnace above the flame. Nguy Tac nodded. He sent out 5 streams of true essence in succession. 5 dark red flames burst from the nozzles and intertwined into the shape of a flower. Nguy Tac took out an ordinary black gold pill furnace and carefully placed it above the fire. The heaven-mending pill had no special requirements regarding the pill furnace itself. As long as the vessel could endure the heat of earthfire, it was sufficient. Good! 2 pieces of cold dew root. Following the old man's instructions, Nguy Tac dropped 2 pale green chunks of root into the black gold furnace. They looked almost like small potatoes, and had clearly been carefully selected and prepared beforehand. The moment they entered the furnace, moisture began steaming violently from them. In less than half an incense stick, the 2 pieces crumbled apart and became 2 small piles of pale green powder. 3 stalks of silver moongrass. Prepare 5 7-leaf orchids. Good, now put them in together! Nguy Tac waved his hand. 3 unusual plants as white as silver and 5 7-leaf orchids, each with 7 leaves and tiny purple flowers, fell into the furnace at the same time. Under the fierce heat, the silver moongrass and 7-leaf orchids rapidly burned down, transforming into silver and purple powders. 10 stalks of purple voidgrass. 1 azure-armored beetle demonic core. Get them ready. When I tell you to put them in, immediately close the furnace lid. The old man's expression became unusually serious. All right. Nguy Tac took a deep breath. His raised hand was slightly tense. Most of the ingredients were cheap, but 1 azure-armored beetle core alone cost 60 low-grade spirit stones. If he ruined the batch through carelessness, it would be the same as setting money on fire. Isn't it time yet? Nguy Tac was concentrating so intensely that he almost stopped breathing. He watched until the 7-leaf orchid powder began burning into tiny black granules, then finally could not help asking, "Stop talking." The old man snapped at him. He waited almost another full incense stick. Only when the silver moon grass powder had turned pure white did he suddenly shout, "Now, put them in!" Nguy Tac reacted almost instinctively. He threw the purple void grass and azure-armored beetle core into the furnace and slammed the lid shut. In that brief instant, he saw the purple void grass and demonic core immediately dissolve into purple and yellow-green vapors. Time passed. A medicinal fragrance began drifting from the small furnace, refreshing the mind. Add 2 more fire nozzles. Nguy Tac had thought the pill was nearly finished when the old man suddenly shouted. He did not hesitate. 2 more flames erupted beneath the furnace. The black gold pill furnace was almost completely surrounded by fire. Gloop! A sound like boiling oil suddenly came from inside. What's happening? Nguy Tac was startled. The spiritual medicines have melted into medicinal liquid. Next comes pill formation. The old man spoke quickly while staring at the furnace wrapped in flame. Quick! Shut off 3 nozzles! What? Nguy Tac hurriedly pushed true essence into the controls, but he had only shut off the 2nd nozzle when a muffled explosion sounded inside the furnace. Turn everything off. The old man's expression immediately worsened. This heaven-mending pill failed. Failed? Nguy Tac's heart ached terribly. He extinguished all the flames and opened the scorching hot furnace lid. Inside lay glittering yellow-green fragments that looked like broken crystals. "I can't refine pills myself anymore," the old man said without mocking him. "Judging the timing and instructing you from outside is difficult enough, and I haven't refined pills in a very long time. My control of the fire is rusty." In truth, this first attempt had already exceeded the old man's expectations. Nguy Tac had made no mistakes at all during their first cooperation. The failure had only occurred at the final pill-forming stage. The old man looked calmly at Nguy Tac. Again. Inside the quiet earthfire chamber, a long time later, the old man's calm voice sounded once more. Again. Did it finally work? The ingredients were the same, the steps were the same. The old man had already ordered him to try again 3 times. Nguy Tac's entire body was soaked in sweat. This time, when he shut off 3 fire nozzles in succession, no explosion came from the furnace. Instead, a rich medicinal fragrance spread outward. Joy finally flashed through the old man's previously calm eyes. He exhaled, extinguished all the earth fire. The dark red pillars of flame vanished. A deep, mellow fragrance spread through the entire chamber as Nguy Tac opened the black gold pill furnace. He looked inside and almost cried. At the bottom of the furnace sat a perfectly round yellow-green pill. It gleamed like polished jade. Fine silver threads seemed to move within it, and the entire pill emitted a faint radiance. Inside the quiet cultivation chamber, Nguy Tac sat on a cushion woven from silver thread grass. 7 heaven-mending pills lay in a jade box before him, glowing faintly and filling the air with an intoxicating medicinal fragrance. For 2 nights in a row, he had refined heaven-mending pills under the old man's guidance. He had started with 15 azure-armored beetle cores. 8 batches failed. 7 pills succeeded. The success rate had not even reached 50%, and that was only because the old man in green had personally guided him through every step. In truth, it was almost as though the old man were using Nguy Tac's hands to perform the alchemy himself. Nguy Tac currently knew only the rough sequence of what needed to happen and approximately when. If he tried refining the pills alone, successfully producing even 1 heaven-mending pill from 15 azure-armored beetle cores would already be impressive. No wonder pills are so expensive. No wonder every sect protects alchemists and artifact refiners like treasures. This isn't alchemy, it's burning spirit stones. Thinking about how he had destroyed nearly 500 low-grade spirit stones worth of materials in only 2 nights made Nguy Tac's heart hurt. After paying 80 low-grade spirit stones for 1 month of rent, he had only a little more than 400 left. At his normal cultivation rate, he could consume around 300 low-grade spirit stones in a month. The remainder would not even be enough to purchase more azure-armored beetle cores. Damn it, forget it. I'll test the heaven-mending pill first, then I'll figure out how to earn more spirit stones. With his current success rate at talisman refining, he could still earn spirit stones at a decent pace by making fireball talismans and hunting demonic beasts. He could certainly afford his ordinary daily cultivation, but whether he could consistently buy enough azure-armored beetle cores every month was another matter. Nguy Tac shook his head and stopped worrying about it. He reached into the jade box and picked up 1 heaven-mending pill. It felt cool against his fingers, almost like a jewel. Fine silver strands floated beautifully inside the transmute medicine. Looks pretty good. Wonder what it tastes like. Excited to try the first pill he had ever refined successfully, Nguy Tac stuck out his tongue and licked it. Damn. The bitterness was so intense that his eyes nearly popped out. He immediately gave up on tasting it and swallowed the entire pill. Then he closed his eyes, circulated his cultivation art, and began refining the medicinal power. Very quickly, a glittering yellow-green radiance appeared beneath his skin. More than half an hour later, the 4 divine seas inside him suddenly erupted with brilliant purple light. The sound of true essence circulating through his body, once like faint flowing water, became noticeably louder. It really works! Nguy Tac's eyes snapped open in delight. In that half hour, he had completely refined the heaven-mending pill. Not only did his physical strength feel noticeably greater, but all 4 purple divine seas had expanded by a visible amount. The heaven-mending pill truly was a miraculous medicine, capable of strengthening the divine seas and raising the effective grade of a low-level cultivation art. The old man had already told him there was no restriction preventing continuous use. Once each pill's medicinal power was completely refined, another could immediately be taken. Nguy Tac hesitated only briefly. Then he could not resist. He began refining the remaining pills one after another. If another cultivator had witnessed the scene inside the quiet chamber, they would have been shocked speechless. One after another, 6 more heaven-mending pills disappeared into Nguy Tac's stomach. Purple energy swirled around his body. The sound of true essence within him grew steadily louder. At first, it resembled a faint stream. Then it became the clear, continuous murmur of a small brook. For Nguy Tac himself, the sensation of his divine seas continuously expanding, and his true essence becoming stronger layer by layer, was unbelievably satisfying. By the time he finished refining all 7 heaven-mending pills, the 4 purple divine seas inside him were dramatically different from before. When he finally opened his eyes in overwhelming excitement, it was already completely dark outside. The old man in green had emerged from the ghost-nurturing jar and had apparently been watching him for quite some time. Seeing Nguy Tac open his eyes, he snorted. "I knew you wouldn't be able to resist. You refined every single heaven-mending pill in one sitting. If I have them, why shouldn't I use them?" Nguy Tac stretched his arms and legs, extremely excited. "Old man, my divine seas feel much better now. How different is the purple mystic true art from before? Can't you test it yourself?" The old man sneered. "Good point." For once, Nguy Tac did not argue. He jumped up and rushed into the chamber designed for testing spells and artifacts. Boom, boom, boom. Golden lightning struck the hard stone wall again and again. The azure water blade consumed relatively little true essence, so Nguy Tac chose the golden serpent lightning art for the test. Now that he had reached the 4th level of the Divine Sea Realm, he had cultivated the technique to its 3rd stage. The lightning sphere he released could explode into 20 separate golden bolts and cover an area roughly 2 zhang wide. The spell's power was excellent. Its only problem was that a low-grade cultivation art like the Purple Mystic True Art could not support many uses. Normally, after casting the Golden Serpent Lightning spell 15 or 16 times, Nguy Tac would be nearly out of true essence. This time he continued until he had released almost 30 attacks. Only then did he stop in disbelief. Even after nearly 30 castings, his true essence had not been completely exhausted. His reserves had more than doubled. An ordinary 4th-level Divine Sea cultivator practicing a middle-grade mystic cultivation art could cast the same spell roughly 30 times. 7 heaven-mending pills had raised the Purple Mystic True Art by an entire grade. Old man, does that mean my Purple Mystic True Art is no longer a low-grade mystic art? It's effectively middle-grade mystic now? After clearly sensing the transformation in his divine seas, Nguy Tac felt as though he were dreaming. The old man looked at him meaningfully. In everyone else's eyes, the Purple Mystic True Art is still the same garbage cultivation art. But in reality, its power is now equivalent to a middle-grade mystic cultivation art. Damn! Nguy Tac's mouth fell open. Then if I refine a few dozen more heaven-mending pills and raise the Purple Mystic True Art to Earth grade, anyone practicing a high-grade mystic art will look at me, assume I'm cultivating trash, and think I can't possibly beat them. Then I can smash them when they least expect it. If your art reaches Earth grade, of course you'll be stronger than a cultivator of the same realm using a high-grade mystic art. The old man curled his lip. But a few dozen heaven-mending pills? Keep dreaming. Nguy Tac's eyes widened. What do you mean? 7 pills were enough to raise the Purple Mystic True Art by 1 small grade. But the difference between each cultivation art grade grows exponentially. The old man explained. To raise it from middle-grade mystic to high-grade mystic, you'll need at least twice as much total strengthening, close to 30 heaven-mending pills. Going from high-grade mystic to low-grade earth will require several times more again. At minimum, probably more than 120 pills. Nguy Tac opened his mouth. No words came out. Once again realizing just how poor he was, Nguy Tac walked dejectedly toward the free market in northern Linh Nhac City. Before leaving home, he had poured true essence into a communication jade talisman, hoping to meet Nam Cung Vu Tinh and borrow some spirit stones. If he could refine another 30 or 40 heaven-mending pills and raise his cultivation art to high-grade mystic, his overall combat strength would increase significantly. For a cultivator, strength was the foundation of everything. Once stronger, he could hunt higher-level demonic beasts and earn spirit stones much faster. Nguy Tac had already tested another effect as well. As his divine seas strengthened, he could refine spiritual energy slightly faster. In other words, his cultivation speed had also improved. Nam Cung Vu Tinh still had several hundred low-grade spirit stones left. At the very least, borrowing from her might allow him to buy enough azure-armored beetle cores to deal with his immediate shortage. But no matter how long he waited beneath the largest public notice board, Nam Cung Vu Tinh never appeared. She was probably still preparing with the other members of Thiet Sash to deal with the heart-eating worm, and had not returned to the city. She might not even have received the signal from his communication jade talisman. Nguy Tac carefully studied every notice on the board, but found no suitable way to earn a large amount of spirit stones quickly. So he discussed the matter with the old man in green and decided that he might as well hunt azure-armored beetles himself. There were still several regions where those third-tier beasts could be found. A third-tier demonic beast was no longer especially difficult for Nguy Tac to deal with. He could even treat the hunt as practical spell training. Night had already fallen. The old man in green had never properly explored the markets of Linh Nhac City, so Nguy Tac tucked the ghost-nurturing jar inside his robe and brought him along. Many wandering cultivators spent their days collecting materials or hunting demonic beasts outside the city. Because traveling after dark was dangerous, they returned to Linh Nhac City at night. As a result, the northern market was often even busier after sunset than during the day. Besides the permanent shops, many cultivators who traded in the open markets outside the city during daylight would return and set up temporary stalls wherever space was available. They still had to pay a small fee, but far less than a permanent shop paid. Their prices were therefore often slightly lower. The problem was that quality varied wildly. Counterfeit goods and outright scams were everywhere. That was another reason Nguy Tac had brought the old man in green. The ancient artifact spirit had extremely sharp eyes. He could help distinguish genuine treasures from worthless fakes and save Nguy Tac's spirit stones. The night market in northern Linh Nhac City was packed with people. Every shop and temporary stall was surrounded by cultivators. At least 2,000 people had gathered in the lively district. Tac wore an utterly ordinary blue cloth robe that attracted no attention at all. He followed the road lined with stalls toward the central square, where the greatest number of merchants had gathered. There was almost nothing that could not be found here. Artifact refining materials, weapons, talismans, magical artifacts. Many of the stalls even displayed genuinely valuable items. But Nguy Tac had visited markets like this many times. He also knew he no longer had many spirit stones. Whenever he saw something obviously beyond his budget, he did not even bother giving it a second glance. He had only made it halfway through the market when the old man in green began shouting non-stop inside his ear. "Buy it! Quicksand talisman! That's useful when hunting demonic beasts. Hurry up and buy it! Second-tier flying cloud talisman. Don't you lack a proper flight technique? Buy it! Wild ice thorn pears. Excellent. Feed a few to a frost crow and it'll advance 1 rank. Buy them. Hurry! Black meteorite iron. Good material for a defensive shield. Even earthfire can't melt it. I can't believe that brat who looks even more annoying than you has something like this. Buy it!" Fortunately, the old man in green knew how to transmit his voice directly into Nguy Tac's ears from inside the ghost nurturing jar. Otherwise, every merchant in the market would have joyfully surrounded the idiot who apparently wanted to buy everything he saw. Enough! Nguy Tac finally could not take it anymore. "Old man, I can understand you telling me to buy the quicksand talisman and flying cloud talisman. I can actually use those. But what am I supposed to do with wild ice thorn pears and black meteorite iron? Am I supposed to buy the pears, then go capture a frost crow just so you can feed it? And black meteorite iron can't even be melted by earthfire. What am I supposed to do with it? Use it as a pillow?" Nguy Tac's voice grew more miserable. "Do you want me to buy this entire market? Where am I supposed to find that many spirit stones? I'm already worrying about how to afford enough ingredients for heaven-mending pills." Ahem. The old man sounded slightly embarrassed. "In the past, I liked walking through markets like this and buying interesting things. I've been trapped inside the ghost nurturing jar for too long. I haven't bought anything in tens of thousands of years. My hands are itching." He coughed again. "Fine. From now on, I'll control myself. If something is useless to you, I won't tell you to buy it. Is that acceptable? Fine." Seeing the old man actually give in made Nguy Tac soften too. "You like shopping this much? Next time I come out to buy things, I'll bring you along. I'll work hard and earn more spirit stones so one day you can buy whatever you want to your heart's content. But right now I'm a little short on money. Help me choose things that are useful and not too expensive." Nguy Tac lowered his head and muttered softly. To anyone else, it simply looked as though he were talking to himself. A low-level wandering cultivator like him did not attract much attention. As it happened, 2 relatively well-off wandering cultivators walked past at that exact moment. They heard him mumbling to himself, exchanged sympathetic looks, and whispered, "Poor bastard, he's so short on spirit stones that his mind broke. He's fantasizing about becoming rich enough to shop without limits. That's him." At that exact moment, Nguy Tac's gaze suddenly turned cold. "Who?" the old man asked, sensing his change in mood. "A first-level heavenly circuit cultivator with a bad attitude." Nguy Tac's eyes followed a middle-aged cultivator in red. "He stole the Earthfire Furnace residence I was about to rent the other day. If there hadn't been one other residence left, we wouldn't even have an Earthfire Furnace right now. That's the bastard over there." It was the same gloomy-faced red-robed cultivator Nguy Tac had seen at the auction and later encountered in Not Tam Hall. "Old man, what is he buying?" Nguy Tac quietly moved closer. The red-robed cultivator was purchasing a pile of fiery red crystal sand from one vendor, along with a fist-sized lump of black ore containing a rice grain-sized silver crystal. That red material is fire cloud crystal. It can increase the heat of flames. The black ore is yellowfang copper ore. Yellowfang copper easily fuses with refined metals and is commonly used to improve the flexibility of flying swords. The old man gave a cold laugh. The azure-toed earth-fire furnace doesn't produce enough heat for what he's doing, so he needs fire cloud crystal too. Add the yellowfang copper and it's obvious. He's refining a flying sword, so he probably is a sword cultivator. Nguy Tac nodded. He tried to buy silver steel essence at the auction too. If I ever run into him again, I'll need to be extremely careful. He knew very well how frightening flying swords could be. At that exact moment, the red-robed cultivator seemed to sense the hostility in Nguy Tac's gaze. He abruptly turned around and stared toward him with dark, vicious eyes. Nguy Tac's heart jumped. He immediately relaxed his expression and casually moved alongside several other cultivators toward two neighboring stalls. The red-robed cultivator apparently did not recognize him. He only gave the crowd a fierce glance before turning and disappearing into a side alley. Nguy Tac had no desire to provoke a possible sword cultivator yet. Only after the man vanished from sight did he raise his head again. You think I'm an idiot? This broken piece of junk and you want 300 low-grade spirit stones? And you're calling it a mysterious magical treasure fragment? Are you trying to die? If you don't want it, then don't buy it. Why do you need to insult people? Do you think I'm easy to bully? A heated argument erupted from a stall not far away. A magical treasure fragment? The words immediately caught Nguy Tac's attention. He hurried toward the stall. Every cultivator dreamed of owning a magical treasure. Nguy Tac had personally seen the power of Nam Cung Vu Ting's broken treasure fragment. Although she could activate it only once each day, it still retained part of the power of the original treasure, and far surpassed Lam Down Hat's quasi-spirit-grade imitation artifact. The stall owner was a square-faced middle-aged cultivator in his 40s. He wore animal hide clothing, had tanned skin, and possessed thick, rough hands and feet. The man arguing with him was a tall, extremely thin cultivator in blue who looked like a bamboo pole. His face was slightly sallow, and he appeared to be around 27 or 28. Out of habit, Nguy Tac immediately used the aura reading art. Both men were 5th-level Divine Sea cultivators. However, the radiance of their Divine Seas was not especially bright. They were probably practicing low-grade mystic cultivation arts. Their robes were comparable as well. The stall owner's leather garment had been made from the hide of a blackwater civet, while the thin cultivator's robe had been woven from blue silk bamboo. Both provided protection similar to a first-tier defensive talisman. The thin cultivator stared at the stall owner with killing intent. The stall owner refused to back down and glared right back. In his hand was a gray object that looked like half of a broken knife. Bullying you? The thin cultivator laughed coldly. If another cultivator with less knowledge came along, wouldn't you cheat him out of several hundred spirit stones with this garbage? Buying and selling is voluntary. One side offers, the other side chooses whether to accept. The stall owner sneered. Do you dare claim this isn't a fragment of a magical treasure? Then he opened his hand and took out a red jade pendant. His meaning was obvious. Fire Dragon Pendant! Several cultivators watching nearby sucked in sharp breaths. The stall owner had produced a famous imitation magical treasure of the Kui Knot sect. The Fire Dragon Pendant belonged to the same general level as Nguy Tac's Fire Phoenix treasure garment. Both were quasi-spirit-grade artifacts. The difference was that one was offensive, while the other was defensive. By showing it, the stall owner was clearly telling the thin cultivator to stop causing trouble, unless he was prepared for a fight. What? You think I'm afraid because you have one magical artifact? Cold light flashed in the thin cultivator's eyes. He raised both hands and revealed two objects. One was a small round shield radiating icy energy. The other was a talisman covered in white bone fragments. Both were engraved with skull-shaped runes. White bone shield, bone arrow talisman. He's a disciple of the White Bone Wanderer. The surrounding cultivators reacted immediately. Both items were signature creations of the famous wandering artifact refiner known as the White Bone Wanderer. The White Bone Wanderer was a renowned expert near Nhac City and had reached the 5th level of the Heavenly Circuit realm many years ago. The bone arrow talisman he sold possessed power comparable to a second-tier offensive talisman. The white bone shield also provided second-tier defensive strength, but unlike an ordinary talisman, it could be used repeatedly. Only disciples of the White Bone Wanderer normally possessed one. What? Trying to scare me with your master's name? The stall owner remained completely unafraid. I'm a nobody. Even if the White Bone Wanderer wanted to deal with me, he might not be able to find me. If you want to act arrogant, go back to Nhac City and do it there. You think killing you would require my master? The thin cultivator became furious. Do you dare leave the city and fight me? If you're determined to die, I'll grant your wish. Killing intent appeared clearly in the stall owner's eyes. A battle seemed unavoidable. Then another voice suddenly cut in. Gentlemen, harmony brings wealth. Both of you are already at the 5th level of the Divine Sea Realm. Breaking through to the Heavenly Circuit Realm can't be far away. Why risk damaging yourselves and your artifacts over a moment of anger? The speaker continued smoothly. Even the winner may lose valuable equipment. You're both senior cultivators. Since this argument started over that treasure fragment, why not let me inspect it? I happen to enjoy collecting fragments of ancient magical treasures. If I find it suitable, perhaps I can simply buy it. Then the two of you can turn hostility into friendship. What do you think? You want to inspect this fragment? The stall owner looked over in surprise. The speaker was a young cultivator wearing an ordinary blue robe. The stall owner was not completely fearless of the white-bone wanderer either. Having someone step in to calm the situation was actually ideal. The thin cultivator snorted. That fragment is far too ancient. It may still contain some power, but no one knows how to activate it. What difference is there between that and a broken tile? You, the stall owner, was about to become angry again. But the blue-robed young man simply smiled and accepted the fragment. That's fine. I enjoy collecting old things. Seeing that the young man refused to listen to his warning, and remembering that he had stepped in with good intentions, the thin cultivator no longer said anything. He even felt faintly grateful. He nodded slightly toward the young man, gave the stall owner one final vicious glare, and walked away. I've never seen a fragment like this before. How about selling it to me cheaply? The blue-robed young cultivator looked it over briefly and smiled at the stall owner. Naturally, the young cultivator was Nguy Tac. The stall owner spat in the direction the thin cultivator had left. I hate people who rely on their background to bully others even though they don't have much ability themselves. Then he turned toward Nguy Tac and spoke loudly. If I sold this to someone like that, I'd demand 300 low-grade spirit stones. But for a brother like you, 3 low-grade spirit stones is enough. 3 low-grade spirit stones. Damn it. In a quiet corner of the northern market, even the old man in green nearly went insane with excitement and used one of Nguy Tac's favorite curses. Old man, what exactly is this thing? Nguy Tac held the gray fragment, which gave off a faint light and an uncomfortable, sinister aura. His own heart was pounding with excitement. The moment the old man had seen the item, he had practically gone mad, and told Nguy Tac that he could refuse to buy anything else in the entire market. But if he failed to buy this one object, he would regret it for half his life. The old man had lived for tens of thousands of years. Nguy Tac was not worried about figuring out how to activate an ancient fragment that no one else understood. He only wanted to know why this particular object had made the shopping-obsessed artifact spirit so excited. The Yin Wraith Blade! The old man's voice was almost breathless. This is a fragment of the Yin Wraith Blade. The complete Yin Wraith Blade was a high-grade spirit-level magical treasure. I just examined the fragment carefully. It still retains more than half of the original treasure's power. A genuine spirit-level magical treasure? And high-grade at that? Nguy Tac's mouth fell open. If a high-grade spirit treasure still retained more than half its power, then this fragment's strength should be roughly comparable to an actual low-grade spirit-level magical treasure. That was more than twice the power of Lam Down Hat's imitation artifact. What kind of treasure was it? How do I use it? It took Nguy Tac a moment to recover. His palms were already damp with sweat as he tightly held the gray half-blade. Wait, let me inspect how badly damaged it is and how much power remains. The old man's voice sounded directly inside his ear. A faint strand of green light emerged from the ghost-nurturing jar, slipped along Nguy Tac's clothing, ran down his arm and wrapped around the broken fragment. Nguy Tac could not tell what kind of refined metal had been used to create the object. Runes far thinner than spider silk covered its surface. The fragment felt icy cold in his hand. Green light flowed through those runes several times before returning to the jar. I have one piece of good news and one piece of bad news. Which do you want first? Nguy Tac was already impatient. He ground his teeth. Damn it! Tell me both at once! The old man fell silent for a moment, apparently rendered speechless by the answer. Then he continued. The good news is that more than half of the internal formations remain intact. Its actual power is indeed comparable to a genuine low-grade spirit-level magical treasure, roughly equal to the full-force spell of a 4th-level Heavenly Circuit cultivator. The bad news is that several formations are damaged, so activating it consumes far more true essence than it originally should. With your current cultivation, 2 uses will almost completely drain you. The physical body of the treasure is also cracked in several places. If it directly collides with a powerful spell or magical treasure, the damage may worsen. At best, its power will fall. At worst, it will be destroyed completely. If you ever get the chance, repair it before relying on it too heavily. Repair it? How? Nguy Tac was too happy to be discouraged. At present, he badly lacked a truly powerful offensive spell or artifact. A treasure with genuine spirit-level power was enough to make him delighted even if he could activate it only once or twice. As his cultivation improved, he would eventually be able to use it more often. And if the fragment was too fragile to clash directly with enemy treasures, then he would simply use it for sudden ambushes. Of course, something of this level could not possibly be easy to repair. Sure enough, the old man answered as Nguy Tac expected. I know how to repair it, but telling you now is useless. Without at least 5th level heavenly circuit cultivation and a powerful true fire technique, you can't perform the repair. Nguy Tac looked again at the gray fragment glowing faintly in his hand. What kind of treasure was the Yin Wraith Blade? It was refined by an elder of the Yin origin sect. That sect specialized in Yin energy cultivation arts and sinister magical treasures, the old man explained. The Yin Wraith Blade was made from the bone of an iron bone flood dragon fused with several refined metals, then nourished with enormous amounts of Yin energy and countless beast souls. When the treasure was intact, activating it didn't merely release a terrifying streak of black light, it also summoned dozens of skulls formed from black Yin wind. When unleashed, the wind howled, sand and stones flew, ghosts wailed, and wolves howled. It was a truly vicious treasure. Nguy Tac swallowed repeatedly. He did not care who had refined it or whether the treasure was considered righteous, evil, sinister, or obscene. As long as it was practical and powerful, the more underhanded it was, the better. Old man, let's quickly buy whatever else we need and go home. Then you can teach me how to use this fragment. Nguy Tac's eyes shone. The Yin Wraith Blade has the power of a genuine spirit treasure. Killing 4th-tier beasts like the One-Horned Thunder Kui should be easy. After this, I can spend spirit stones buying information about where 4th-tier beasts appear. The old man immediately protested. I just helped you buy a treasure worth at least 1,000 spirit stones for only 3. You have to let me keep shopping for a while. Who knows? Maybe we'll find something else just as good. Nguy Tac thought about it and decided the old man had a point. He put away the Yin Wraith Blade fragment and prepared to return to the busiest part of the market. Heart-eating worm, Thiet Sach. But as he stepped out from the quiet corner, several faint words drifted from a narrow alley across the road. Inside stood a middle-aged cultivator in yellow robes. He had a long beard, wore a jade crown, and looked extremely scholarly and refined. He was quietly giving instructions to a gray-robed cultivator. Nguy Tac could not hear the full conversation, but the few words that reached him made him stop. Almost at the same moment, Nguy Tac saw the two men's faces clearly. The yellow-robed cultivator finished speaking and left through the other end of the alley. Old man, I think he mentioned something involving a heart-eating worm and Thiet Sach. Nguy Tac spoke softly. They're acting suspiciously. I'm going to follow them and see what's happening. Without waiting for the old man to answer, he immediately moved after them. You're worried something happened to Nam Cung Vu Tinh, aren't you? Fine. Follow them. The old man muttered quietly. Peering through the alley, Nguy Tac saw the yellow-robed cultivator and the gray-robed man emerge from opposite ends and separate as if they had never known each other. Nguy Tac secretly activated the aura reading art. His expression immediately changed. 6 brilliant golden divine sea lights appeared inside the gray-robed cultivator. The man was a first-level heavenly circuit cultivator. The yellow-robed middle-aged cultivator was even more alarming. His entire body was wrapped in a blazing aura that Nguy Tac's technique could not penetrate at all. Nguy Tac had already reached the 4th level of the divine sea realm. His aura reading art could inspect ordinary heavenly circuit cultivators. If the technique could not see through this man, then the yellow-robed cultivator had to be at least at the 2nd level of the heavenly circuit realm. Nguy Tac's heart turned cold. He hesitated for only an instant. The gray-robed cultivator had already left the northern market. The yellow-robed man, meanwhile, strolled casually into another alley as though he were simply wandering. Nguy Tac watched carefully. A long-haired Taoist in a purple robe suddenly hurried after him. The purple robe was embroidered with dragon and tiger patterns. The Taoist looked more than 50 years old. Nguy Tac used the aura reading art again. His heart jolted. This old Taoist was also a first-level heavenly circuit cultivator. All 6 divine seas within him were purple and violently surging. He practiced at least a high-grade mystic true essence art. Seeing 3 heavenly circuit cultivators in rapid succession experts, rarely encountered under normal circumstances, and watching all 3 behave so mysteriously made Nguy Tac even more certain something was wrong. Without hesitation, he lowered his head and followed toward the alley entered by the yellow-robed cultivator. When he approached the entrance, he quickly glanced inside. To his surprise, both the yellow-robed man and the purple-robed Taoist seemed to have accelerated once they entered. The dim alley ahead was empty. Nguy Tac cautiously followed. At the next fork, both paths were deserted. His eyes moved back and forth as he hesitated over whether to retreat. Then an icy voice suddenly sounded beside his ear. What is it? Were you following me? A figure stepped from the shadows ahead. It was the yellow-robed middle-aged cultivator. the man who possessed at least second-level heavenly circuit cultivation. The faint smile on his refined face suddenly looked terrifying to Nguy Tac. Cold sweat immediately soaked his back. At the same time, soft footsteps came from behind. The purple-robed old Taoist appeared from nowhere and stood at the alley entrance. One man ahead, one behind. Nguy Tac was trapped between them. He did not hesitate for even a heartbeat. He immediately put on an extremely surprised expression, turned toward the old Taoist, and spoke quickly. I have a very interesting magical treasure fragment. I noticed this fellow Taoist earlier and thought he looked knowledgeable, so I wanted to ask whether he might be interested in buying it. Nguy Tac blinked innocently. I only saw the fellow Taoist walking ahead of me. As for this talk about following someone, I'm afraid I don't understand. A magical treasure fragment? Take it out. The purple-robed Taoist's face remained cold as he walked several steps closer. Nguy Tac pulled out the Yin Wraithblade fragment. Get lost. The old Taoist needed only one glance. Cold light flashed through his eyes. 6 divine sea lights erupted from his body, and a terrifying pressure surged outward. Nguy Tac immediately covered his head and fled without daring to look back. That gray-robed cultivator was extremely cautious. Only after Nguy Tac had left the alley and reached a place crowded with other cultivators did the old man in green finally speak again. He still sounded shaken. Your acting as a wandering merchant was convincing. Otherwise, with their cultivation, they might have killed you before anyone from the Nguy Tac sect could intervene. In the future, don't casually follow cultivators, whose strength is far beyond your own. Damn it. Good thing I used to do plenty of buying and selling. Nguy Tac wiped cold sweat from his face. That encounter had been far too dangerous. If the 2 men had decided to kill him to silence a witness, even knowing how to use the Yin Wraithblade might not have been enough to save him while trapped between 2 heavenly circuit cultivators. That brat was sneaking around, extremely suspicious. He's only a low-level wandering cultivator. He's not disguising his cultivation. He was even trying to sell a magical treasure fragment he couldn't use. If we kill him here and accidentally alert the Nguy Tac sect, it'll only create trouble. The old man in green suddenly repeated those words inside Nguy Tac's ear. Nguy Tac froze. Old man, what are you talking about? That was close. We need to know what those 2 are discussing. The old man spoke quickly. I'll spend some of my remaining vital energy and send my spiritual awareness outside the jar once. Don't go too far away. If you do, I won't be able to sense what they're saying. Nguy Tac immediately became alert. A trace of emotion flashed through his eyes. Long ago, when he asked why the old man constantly needed fire scorpion blood, he had learned that an artifact spirit like the old man could temporarily send its consciousness away from the treasure body only when its vital energy was sufficiently full. The ghost-nurturing jar was damaged. Even with fire scorpion blood replenishing him, the old man's energy continued dissipating every day. Yet now he was willing to spend that precious energy for Nguy Tac. Soon, faint voices entered Nguy Tac's ears. Nguy Tac has sent almost everyone out. They're heading directly to Thon Phong Tomb. They should make their move tomorrow morning. If something goes wrong, none of us will even have a place to be buried. Are you absolutely certain? If I weren't certain, why would we act? Relax. The strongest members of Nguy Tac accepted a commission and went to that Tin City. They won't be back for at least 2 days. That information is completely reliable. The speaker lowered his voice. And there is definitely more than one heart-eating worm. One of them has already advanced to Elder Class. If that's confirmed, then there won't be a problem. There's one more thing. One cultivator among them must be captured alive. You'll receive an additional 500 low-grade spirit stones for that. I'll point the person out when the time comes. Don't kill that one. When do we meet? At sunrise tomorrow. There are quite a few high-level demonic beasts active there at night. Nguy Tac won't choose to operate during darkness either. Fine. The yellow-robed middle-aged cultivator and the purple-robed Taoist finished their discussion and left through opposite ends of the alley. Nguy Tac stood beside a random market stall, his entire body covered in cold sweat. The conversation had been brief, but he understood enough. Over the last few days, members of Nguy Tac had been preparing to hunt a 5th-tier heart-eating worm. The demonic core of an ordinary 5th-tier beast alone could be worth 500 low-grade spirit stones, and a heart-eating worm was far more valuable than an ordinary 5th-tier beast. Several parts of its body were rare materials for powerful magical treasures. A special crystal inside it could be refined into treasures that produced demonic sound attacks. Its skin was excellent material for invisibility-type magical artifacts. To high-level artifact refiners, a rare creature this difficult to hunt could be worth far more than a few hundred or even a few thousand spirit stones. Nguy Tac certainly did not lack heavenly circuit cultivators. But according to what Nguy Tac had just heard, Nguy Tac believed there was only one heart-eating worm. The truth was very different. There were several, and one had advanced to Elder Class. Cultivators on the Thian Huyan continent commonly used the term elder class for demonic beasts that had lived long enough to exceed the normal limit of their species. A heart-eating worm was normally a 5th-tier lower-rank beast. With its natural invisibility talent, even advancing by a single sub-rank would make it a 5th-tier middle-rank beast. A 5th-tier middle-rank demonic beast possessed strength comparable to a 3rd-level heavenly circuit cultivator. And Nguy Tac knew that elder-class beasts usually developed 1 or 2 additional innate abilities after advancing. That meant this elder-class heart-eating worm would be even harder to deal with than an ordinary 5th-tier middle-rank beast. If Thiat Sach had prepared only enough white-scaled beast bone powder to reveal a single heart-eating worm, then suddenly encountered several of them, plus an elder-class monster. Even with multiple heavenly circuit cultivators present, the situation would become extremely dangerous. And judging from the tone of the 2 conspirators, they were deliberately setting a trap. They intended to let Thiat Sach and the heart-eating worms fight until both sides were badly weakened. Then they would emerge, clean up the survivors, and wipe Thiat Sach out in one stroke. Nguy Tac had already seen 3 heavenly circuit cultivators involved in the plot within a very short period of time. Whether the other members of Thiat Sach lived or died had almost nothing to do with him, but Nam Cung Vu Tinh was among them. Nguy Tac hesitated for a moment. Then he ground his teeth, pulled out a communication jade talisman, and poured true essence into it. "You've decided to interfere?" The old man's voice became slightly cold. He had already sensed Nguy Tac's decision. "Damn it. I'll risk it. I still need to borrow spirit stones from her." After activating the communication jade talisman, Nguy Tac ran toward the largest public notice board in the northern market. "Then stop being stingy this time," the old man said. There was a faint edge of killing intent in his voice. "At minimum, let me spend every spirit stone you still have." "Fine, we'll go prepare everything we can." Nguy Tac reached the notice board and grabbed a low-level wandering cultivator who was studying the posted commissions, obviously searching for some way to earn spirit stones. Nguy Tac directly pulled out a mid-grade spirit stone. "Brother, want this spirit stone?" "Of course!" The cultivator had not even reached the 2nd level of the Divine Sea Realm. He nodded so vigorously that his head nearly fell off. "I'll pay you 5 low-grade stones now. Stay here until tomorrow morning and hold up a board with the character Nui written on it. If a female cultivator surnamed Nam Kung comes here, tell her to pour true essence into an object like this. I'll come immediately." Nguy Tac pointed to the communication jade talisman. "Whether she appears or not, as long as you stand here all night, I'll give you another 5 low-grade spirit stones tomorrow. All I have to do is hold this sign and say one sentence?" The low-level cultivator looked delighted. He immediately accepted the payment, took the sign bearing the character Nui, and stood rigidly beneath the notice board. The Kim Ngok Pavilion should still be open. Nguy Tac looked toward the southern district and muttered to himself. Then he began running. "You're getting flustered," the old man said, while Nguy Tac sprinted madly through the streets. That cultivator would have stood there until tomorrow for 2 low-grade spirit stones. The extra spirit stones you gave him might have bought another useful artifact. That could increase your chance of survival. The old man's voice became stern. "The more dangerous the situation, the less you can afford to lose your head." Nguy Tac shuddered. His breathing became steadier. "Understood." After those 3 words, he continued running at full speed. But his eyes had become as cold and clear as stars. "Senior Nyi? What brings you here this late?" Most of the large marketplaces in the southern district stayed open fairly late. The Kim Ngok Pavilion specialized in artifact refining materials, and many newly acquired ingredients had to be treated immediately after arriving. Because of that, the pavilion often did not close until around midnight. Sure enough, when Nguy Tac arrived, the doors were still open. The silver-robed young attendant responsible for receiving customers looked surprised to see him. Nguy Tac spoke quickly. "I want to commission the pavilion to release a message. I also need to buy some things and temporarily pawn several items. And I want to know whether the treasure garment I asked you to modify is finished." The garment was completed today. The attendant still looked slightly surprised. "What items does Senior wish to pawn and purchase?" Nguy Tac coldly pulled out his storage treasure pouch and placed 2 more items on the counter. "I want powerful artifacts or magical treasures. If the Kim Ngok Pavilion has something suitable, I am willing to pawn not only these 2 objects, but also my storage treasure pouch and the golden silk talisman brush that your pavilion auctioned previously." "Jade Cloud Lingzhi? And what is this jade box?" The attendant's expression changed. Nguy Tac glanced at him. "A spirit-preserving jade box. It keeps spiritual medicines from losing their spiritual energy. I don't know whether you've heard of it. A spirit-preserving jade box?" The young attendant became even more serious. "Senior, these items are too valuable." Neither I nor Deputy Manager Liu is qualified to make a decision about them. Please wait while I invite Manager Dian. Nguy Tac nodded. While you're at it, release another notice for me. I'm preparing to leave the city to hunt a demonic beast and want to hire 2 cultivators to accompany me. Specify cultivators from Thiat Saksh. Tell them to come here and find me. Understood. After seeing the valuables Nguy Tac had brought out, the attendant knew that the cost of posting such a message meant nothing to him. He did not waste words. He immediately gave instructions to another employee, then hurried inside to find Manager Dian. Nguy Tac sat quietly and waited. While watching the young man disappear, he once again poured true essence into the communication Jade Talisman. He could only hope Nam Cung Vu Tinh received the signal, or that the conspirator had been lying when he claimed Thiat Saksh had sent all of its people out. Perhaps someone from Thiat Saksh still remained in Linh Nhac City. If not, Nguy Tac was prepared to risk his entire fortune. Fast footsteps sounded from inside. Manager Dian entered the room. Beside him walked an elderly man in black robes with salt and pepper hair. Brother Nguy, I hear you wish to pawn several valuable objects? Manager Dian remained professional as always. He did not ask unnecessary questions and went directly to business. Nguy Tac nodded. Sorry to trouble Manager Dian so late at night. Manager Dian looked slightly apologetic. Our pavilion follows rules similar to other businesses. If an item is pawned and not redeemed within half a month, it is considered sold. The fee for pawning is also somewhat higher than the commission for auctioning. Does Brother Nguy accept these conditions? No problem. Nguy Tac's face looked slightly grim. This time, he might end up fighting at least 3 Heavenly Circuit cultivators, one of whom possessed no less than 2nd-level Heavenly Circuit cultivation. If he made a mistake, he would die. At that point, worrying about whether he could redeem his belongings later seemed ridiculous. This is the treasure garment modified according to your instructions. See whether you're satisfied. Manager Dian handed Nguy Tac a fairly large wrapped bundle. The man worked cleanly and efficiently. This is the robe made from the Fire Phoenix Undergarment? Nguy Tac opened the package in surprise. The garment inside was gray and unimpressive. It actually looked even worse than the plain robe he was currently wearing. Only when he lifted it did he notice that it was considerably heavier than normal clothing. That decision wasn't bad, the old man in green whispered inside Nguy Tac's ear. The black wind mulberry silk reinforced the Fire Phoenix garment. Its defensive power is now almost at true spirit treasure level. He paused, then added disdainfully. The Kim Ngok Pavilion's artifact refiner is mediocre, though. If the additional formation had been arranged more skillfully, the finished grade could have been even higher. I'm very satisfied. After hearing the old man's assessment, Nguy Tac did not need to test it himself. He directly removed his coarse blue robe and put on the gray garment. It fit perfectly. The elderly man in black standing behind Manager Dian showed a faint trace of pride when he saw Nguy Tac's satisfaction. Only then did Manager Dian turn his attention toward the treasures Nguy Tac had placed on the table. It really is Jade Cloud Lingzhi. Even Manager Dian's eyes trembled slightly when he saw the branch glowing with white light. Then he looked at the white jade box. Senior Uncle Oduong, this junior knows little about spirit-preserving jade boxes. Please inspect this treasure. Manager Dian spoke respectfully to the black-robed elder. Nguy Tac immediately understood that the man's status might be even higher than Manager Dian's. The black-robed elder stepped forward with a cold expression. He touched the material of the jade box, placed a stalk of silver candle grass inside, observed it for a short while, then nodded. It is indeed a spirit-preserving jade box. That old man is probably one of the Kim Ngok Pavilion's artifact refiners, the old man in green whispered. Nguy Tac no longer cared. He simply watched Manager Dian and waited for the valuation. To be direct, a spirit-preserving jade box is extremely useful to the Kim Ngok Pavilion. Manager Dian said, we handle many materials that require treasures like this to preserve their spiritual energy. If Brother Nguy is willing to sell it outright, our pavilion is willing to offer a high price. He paused. If you only wish to pawn it, however, we can advance at most 2,000 low-grade spirit stones under ordinary terms. Nguy Tac shook his head. The Jade Cloud Lingzhi, golden silk talisman brush, and spirit-preserving jade box were all things the old man in green had specifically told him to keep. I intend to redeem these items quickly. If I fail to redeem them within 3 days, consider them sold outright to the Kim Ngok Pavilion. Nguy Tac leaned forward slightly. With that condition, can you advance a higher amount? For Nguy Tac, whether he returned alive would be decided within a day. An extra few days on paper meant nothing. Manager Dian's expression changed slightly. He could vaguely sense that Nguy Tac was preparing to do something extremely dangerous. From the Kim Ngok Pavilion's perspective, the more dangerous the task, the greater the chance these items would become permanent property of the pavilion. After thinking for a moment, he nodded. Very well. If the redemption period is only 3 days, I can advance 3,000 low-grade spirit stones on the spirit-preserving jade box. And the other items? The Jade Cloud Lingzhi, golden silk talisman brush, and storage treasure pouch together 2,500 low-grade spirit stones. What do you think? Acceptable. Nguy Tac knew the items would sell for more at auction. But under the circumstances, Manager Dian's offer was fair enough. Does the Nguy Tac Pavilion, or any nearby marketplace, currently have high-grade artifacts for sale? And do you have white-scaled beast bone powder? Manager Dean looked at him in surprise. White-scaled beast bone powder? Someone reserved a large batch several days ago and collected it last night. I'm afraid the marketplaces throughout Linh Nhac City probably have very little left. As for high-grade artifacts, I can gather several options from the Nguy Tac Pavilion and neighboring shops for Brother Nguy to choose from. Nguy Tac's heart turned cold. The people of Thiet Sach had gone out to hunt white-scaled beasts themselves. That meant they probably had not returned to Linh Nhac City before proceeding directly toward the heart-eating worm hunt. The people who purchased the bone powder from the marketplaces were almost certainly the yellow-robed conspirators. Then I'll trouble Manager Dian. Nguy Tac cursed the conspirators inwardly and nodded. Manager Dean gestured to several brocade-clad attendants waiting near the doorway. A short while later, just like at the auction, attendants began carrying wooden trays into the room and placing treasures before Nguy Tac. Windcloud boots. Quasi-spirit-grade artifact. Allows a cultivator to rise roughly 5 zhang into the air. Wind element flight artifact. 800 low-grade spirit stones. Black needle gourd. Imitation magical treasure. Can release several hundred black needles and can be used repeatedly. 1,200 low-grade spirit stones. Sunflare treasure talisman. Can be activated 10 times. Produces an intense flash capable of penetrating ordinary spiritual defenses and causing severe eye pain and temporary blindness. Effective radius, 20 zhang. 200 low-grade spirit stones. 5-element bronze ring. Imitation magical treasure. Can fly out and bind an opponent's limbs. Reusable. 1,500 low-grade spirit stones. Good stuff! The old man in green began yelling excitedly inside Nguy Tac's ear again. Every item placed before Nguy Tac cost at least several hundred low-grade spirit stones. Many were treasures someone at his cultivation level would normally never even get the chance to see. Naturally, the more of these items Nguy Tac could own, the better. But his entire available fortune was only around 6,000 low-grade spirit stones. So he pretended to consider the options while secretly discussing them with the old man. In the end, he selected the Windcloud boots, Sunflare treasure talisman, 5-element bronze ring, Yin scale bone sword, and black tortoise shield. Nguy Tac was stronger than an ordinary 4th-level Divine Sea cultivator. But he was still not powerful enough to directly confront a 1st-level Heavenly Circuit cultivator Somyeon 2 full cultivation levels above him. If he allowed an opponent like that to freely unleash spells and artifacts in a direct battle, Nguy Tac would almost certainly be killed. The Windcloud boots, Sunflare treasure talisman, and 5-element bronze ring were all meant either to escape or temporarily restrict the opponent. Only if he prevented a Heavenly Circuit cultivator from acting normally would he have a chance to kill one through a surprise attack. The Yin scale bone sword and black tortoise shield each cost 1,500 low-grade spirit stones, the same as the 5-element bronze ring. Buying the Yin scale bone sword made Nguy Tac's heart bleed. The weapon was created from Yin scale sand and the bones of several demonic beasts. It was a consumable artifact. It could be used only once. But Nguy Tac still ground his teeth and bought it. He already possessed the Yin Wraithblade fragment, whose offensive power was comparable to a genuine spirit-level magical treasure. Buying another ordinary offensive imitation artifact would not add much. The one-use Yin scale bone sword, however, possessed offensive power no weaker than the Yin Wraithblade and required very little true essence to activate. When it struck, the Yin scale sand within it would explode and could even burn or corrode the opponent's magical artifacts. Nguy Tac was worried that one of the conspirators might possess an exceptionally strong defensive treasure. If the Yin Wraithblade failed to kill the target in a single ambush, the Yin scale bone sword would give him a second chance. More importantly, Nguy Tac was worried that one of them might be a sword cultivator like the red-robed man he had seen earlier. At present, he had very few reliable ways to defend against the terrifying speed and power of a flying sword. The Yin scale bone sword might be able to counter such an attack when everything else failed. The black tortoise shield was more straightforward. It had been refined from the shell of a 5th-tier iron-armored rock tortoise. Its defensive power was roughly equal to that of the modified treasure robe Nguy Tac was now wearing. Once activated, the shield would float before him like a massive door and did not need to be physically held. That alone would greatly increase his chances of surviving a sudden attack. After buying those treasures, Nguy Tac used almost every remaining spirit stone aside from what he needed for teleportation fees to purchase second-tier or higher talismans and chi recovery powder. A cultivator normally emptied his entire fortune on equipment, only when preparing for a genuine life-and-death battle. What made Nguy Tac feel helpless was that even after leaving the Kim Nok Pavilion, he continued activating the communication Jade Talisman again and again. He waited until the sky began showing the first gray hint of dawn. Nam Cung Vu Tinh still sent no response. No member of Thiet Sac appeared either. The yellow-robed conspirator had been telling the truth. Everyone from Thiet Sac in Linh Nhac City had already gone out. Damn it. Realizing there was no longer anyone to wait for, Nguy Tac finally ground his teeth and headed toward the teleportation formation in the southern district. From the conversation between the conspirators, he knew where Thiet Sac was hunting the heart-eating worms. Thon Phong Tomb, the name itself sounded ordinary. But every time Nguy Tac thought about the place, his skin crawled. Linh Nhac City lay in the southern region of the Tianhuian continent, close to the Heaven's Dome. The city itself had been built along mountain terrain, stretching from north to south. Thon Phong Tomb stood 3,000 miles south of Linh Nhac City and could almost be considered right beside the Heaven's Dome. Because of that, any high-level cultivator in Linh Nhac City who wanted to take the shortest route beyond the Heaven's Dome and see the countless powerful demonic beasts outside could simply pass through Thon Phong Tomb. Yet cultivators who actually intended to hunt high-level demonic cores and materials normally chose a different route. They traveled southeast from Linh Nhac City and passed through OK Mountain, a region densely covered in pitch-black OK trees. The reason was simple. The closer one approached the Heaven's Dome, the more demonic beasts appeared. Many truly high-level beasts could not cross the Heaven's Dome and enter the continent. But lower-level creatures without strong magical fluctuations often could. Thon Phong Tomb was dangerous for another reason as well. The entire area was filled with graves, ruins, yin energy, and an oppressive ghostly atmosphere. Perhaps in ancient times it had been considered excellent burial ground. A great number of important people had apparently been entombed there. When Nguy Tac had once traveled to the edge of the Heaven's Dome, he had chosen the much safer route through OK Mountain. Most of the dangerous demonic beasts there had already been hunted clean by stronger cultivators. He had deliberately avoided Thon Phong Tomb. But according to surviving records, all the tombs and mausoleums beneath the region combined occupied an area no smaller than Linh Nhac City itself. The area was also home to large numbers of a third-tier upper-ranked demonic beast found almost nowhere else. The corpse rot beetle. Its true body was an ugly black-shelled beetle with several thick legs, roughly the size of a human palm. That alone would not have been especially disgusting. The problem was its diet. Corpse rot beetles fed on the internal organs of corpses. After eating everything inside, they would crawl into the dead person's skull and control the body like a puppet. They continuously secreted a sticky fluid that coated the corpse and hardened the skin until it became as tough as the hide of certain demonic beasts. Because large numbers of corpse rot beetles moved only at night, cultivators unfamiliar with the truth often mistook the controlled corpses for actual zombies. Killing them was extremely troublesome. Most corpse rot beetles hid inside the skull, but some apparently possessed enough personality to crawl into other parts of the body instead. Against those unpredictable creatures, the only reliable method was often to smash the entire corpse apart until the beetle itself was exposed and destroyed. To reach Thon Phong Tomb from southern Linh Nhac City, Nguy Tac needed to pass through 2 teleportation formations. The first took him to Quang Lang Ruins. From there, another formation led to the northern edge of Thon Phong Tomb. On his way from the Kim Nok Pavilion to the southern teleportation formation, Nguy Tac also posted another public notice. The message claimed that someone was plotting against Thiet Sac at Thon Phong Tomb. It also mentioned that rare spiritual medicine had appeared there. Nguy Tac had no idea whether the conspirators would abandon their plan after realizing word had leaked, or whether other cultivators would rush to Thon Phong Tomb out of curiosity and greed. For him, the safest possibility was simply reaching Thon Phong Tomb and somehow finding the members of Thiet Sac directly. White spiritual light flashed. Nguy Tac stepped out from the teleportation formation at Quang Lang Ruins. Quang Lang Ruins had once been an important cultivator settlement. At some point in the past, for unknown reasons, a large group of high-level demonic beasts suddenly attacked and surrounded it. Cultivators from nearby Linh Nhac City and Lac Nuet City eventually killed the beasts, but by then the settlement had already been reduced to ruins. The Thian Nyat sect later converted the place into a teleportation transfer station. Because it was still night, very few cultivators were present. The entire ruin felt as lonely as a brothel whose most famous beauty had been stolen by a rival establishment. Nguy Tac? The moment Nguy Tac stepped away from the formation connected to Linh Nhac City, another nearby teleportation formation flashed. Two people emerged. The moment they saw him, they froze and then called out happily. They were people Nguy Tac knew. Deep Tu Chin and Deep Ko Vi. Nguy Tac stared. "Why are you two here? Brother Nguy Tac!" The honest Deep Tu Chin strode forward and immediately embraced him. Deep Ko Vi, gentle as always, blushed slightly and did not dare approach for a hug. "Someone hired us to capture several night owls," Deep Tu Chin explained. "We were passing through here and planned to visit you in Linh Nhac City on the way back. I didn't expect to meet you here instead." He looked at Nguy Tac curiously. "Why are you traveling this late at night? Someone is planning to attack Thiet Sach. Nam Cung Vu Tinh is in danger too." If anyone else had asked, Nguy Tac would never have revealed something like this. But Deep Tu Chin and Deep Ko Vi had already survived a life-and-death battle alongside him. Like Nam Cung Vu Tinh, they were among the very few people he genuinely trusted. So Nguy Tac pulled Deep Tu Chin aside and told the siblings everything he had overheard at the northern market, including the conversation between the conspirators. Both of them immediately changed expression. "Brother Nguy, we truly did not choose the wrong person as a friend." Deep Tu Chin glanced at Deep Ko Vi, then spoke without hesitation. "We'll go to Thon Phong Tomb with you. Going with me would be too dangerous." Nguy Tac shook his head. "It would be better if the two of you go to Linh Nhac City and help spread the information." He had already used the aura reading art. Deep Tu Chin and Deep Ko Vi were still only third-level Divine Sea cultivators. Against Heavenly Circuit cultivators, not only would they be unable to help, they would probably become a burden Nguy Tac had to protect. But Deep Tu Chin was painfully sincere. Hearing Nguy Tac tell them to stay safe only made him believe Nguy Tac was even more righteous and loyal. He became emotional. "Now that we know about this, how could we let Brother Nguy risk his life alone?" Nguy Tac immediately developed a headache. He could hardly say, "You two are too weak and would only get in my way." So he became serious and gave them a long explanation instead. "Brother Deep, returning to Linh Nhac City and spreading the news is actually more important. If enough people hear about the conspiracy, the enemy may realize the plot has been exposed and decide not to act at all. If that happens, then when I reach Thiet Sach and warn them, there won't be much danger. That's better than the three of us walking into Thon Phong Tomb and being surrounded by Heavenly Circuit cultivators." After hearing the entire argument, Deep Tu Chin finally felt it made sense. He nodded. "All right, we'll return to Linh Nhac City and spread the news as widely as possible. Be careful," Nguy Tac warned them. "Try not to let anyone discover that the rumors came from you. Otherwise, those Heavenly Circuit cultivators might come after you." "Brother Nguy, take care!" Deep Tu Chin hugged him tightly again. "We don't have many powerful treasures, but we obtained a Spirit Mist Pearl and an Invisibility Talisman recently. They might be useful to you." "Spirit Mist Pearl? Invisibility Talisman?" Nguy Tac's eyes went wide when the siblings took out the two items. The Spirit Mist Pearl was an artifact refined from the eye of a white Ming fish. Once activated, it could release dense spiritual mist covering an area nearly 100 zhang across, blocking an enemy's vision. It was an excellent treasure for escaping. The Invisibility Talisman created a spiritual barrier that bent surrounding light and concealed the user's body. Its effect lasted for roughly half the time needed to burn an incense stick. Spirit Mist Pearls were not especially rare, but Invisibility Talismans were ancient talismans whose refining method had already been lost. They could now only occasionally be found in ancient ruins or among the belongings of ancient cultivator corpses. "Take care." When he finally parted from Deep Tu Chin and Deep Ko Vi, Nguy Tac also hugged the blushing Deep Ko Vi. This time, however, he did not feel shameless about it. He had barely hugged a girl twice in his entire life. If he died tonight, that would truly be a miserable existence. Should have gone to Liu Ha Alley last night. The thought flashed through Nguy Tac's mind as the teleportation formation carried him toward Thon Phong Tomb. When the spiritual light faded, he nearly groaned aloud. The place before him truly looked like the end of the world. Unlike most teleportation stations, where at least some kind of building or settlement had been constructed, the moment Nguy Tac stepped out here, he immediately felt a dangerous, savage atmosphere pressing toward him. The teleportation formation stood not far from Thon Phong Tomb itself and had been hidden inside a crack in the mountain. An illusion formation had even been arranged outside to conceal the entrance. Such precautions were necessary. The surrounding region contained not only large numbers of demonic beasts, but also the possibility of high-level beasts wandering past from beyond the Heaven's Dome. The cultivator guarding the formation was a 5th-level Divine Sea disciple of the Thian Knot sect. He already held several spirit stones in his hand and looked extremely alert, as though he intended to activate the formation and flee the instant something dangerous appeared. Thon Phong Tomb truly resembled one enormous graveyard. The mountains and earth were gray. Twisted trees grew in bizarre shapes. A heavy, ghostly atmosphere hung over everything. To the south lay a large swamp, its surface covered with rotting branches and bones. It was impossible to imagine that this place had once been considered excellent burial ground. Nguy Tac's figure had barely disappeared along the mountain path leading toward Thon Phong Tomb when 7 or 8 cultivators suddenly emerged from the hidden teleportation station. The people leading them were the gray-robed cultivator and the purple-robed Taoist Nguy Tac had seen in the northern market. According to the description given by the Tien Nhat disciple, the person who leaked our information is the same brat we encountered in the northern market. The gray-robed cultivator's voice was extremely cold. Now that we've already begun, we finish this completely. That brat can't possibly meet Thiet Sac immediately after entering. He turned toward the purple-robed Taoist. Fellow Taoist Tu Tiu, I and fellow Taoist Lu will split up and capture him. Then he addressed another man. Fellow Taoist Van, you and the others disguise yourselves as members of Thiet Sac. Say Thiet Sac is surrounding and killing a powerful demonic beast here and has temporarily sealed the area. Do not allow anyone except our people to enter. The distant sky had begun to lighten faintly. South of Thon Phong Tomb stretched a vast wilderness. Farther away, a translucent white curtain of light connected heaven and earth, extending beyond sight in every direction. That was the heavens dome, the boundary, separating the wildlands outside from Thon Phong Tomb and the human continent beyond. Inside the gloomy, ghost-filled tomb region, however, darkness still lingered. Nguy Tac was currently walking beside a swamp with a deeply troubled expression. The situation was terrible. He had never been to Thon Phong Tomb before. He had no map. After entering, he wandered almost randomly and became lost. More than half an hour passed. He had not encountered a single member of Thiet Sac. During that time, he poured true essence into his communication Jade talisman at least 5 or 6 times. But only the talisman in his own hand lit up. The matching talismans showed no response. That meant he had not yet come within 300 miles of Nam Cung Vu Tinh. Dawn was approaching. Nguy Tac had no idea whether the conspirators might have changed their plan and decided to act earlier than expected. He knew he needed to do something. Old man, how much energy do you have left? If you're still all right, help me once more. Nguy Tac stopped beside the swamp, took out a fireball talisman, while speaking quietly to the old man in green. You already know how to use the Yin Wraith Blade, don't you? The old man snorted, apparently understanding Nguy Tac's plan. Don't worry. Using my spiritual awareness one more time won't kill me. Then his tone became sharper. But if you somehow survive this, cultivate harder. Advance faster. Just don't let me die before you ever reach the Golden Core realm. Nguy Tac nodded without answering. His gaze shifted toward the opposite side of the swamp. A pitch-black toad about the size of a human head crouched there. Its golden eyes stared at Nguy Tac warily. Apparently it sensed danger from him and had not yet moved. Boom! A blazing fireball flew from Nguy Tac's hand toward the black toad. Fear flashed in the beast's eyes. Puff! It spat out a green water arrow. The water arrow destroyed only half of the fireball. The remaining flame still struck the toad's body. Nguy Tac did not pause. He immediately launched another fireball talisman. The black toad screamed miserably and tried to jump into the swamp. The second fireball blasted it onto its back. The creature stopped moving completely. After killing the toad, Nguy Tac threw another fireball talisman diagonally into the forest ahead. Then he stood still and waited. A short while later, the old man's voice suddenly sounded inside his ear. Someone's coming. The moment Nguy Tac heard that, he activated the wind cloud boots and rose into the air. He hid inside the canopy of an ancient tree beside the swamp. At the same time, he activated the ancient invisibility talisman. Faint light flickered around his body. Then he completely disappeared among the branches. Not long afterward, a figure flashed through the trees. A cultivator wearing black leather armor emerged from the forest. His face was long and narrow like a horse's. The moment he appeared, he moved with extreme caution. He repeatedly scanned the surroundings while holding some kind of magical artifact in one hand, clearly prepared for a sudden ambush. A moment later, he noticed the blackwater poison toad lying dead beside the swamp. He stopped. His eyes flickered as though he were thinking. Nguy Tac held his breath inside the tree canopy. He secretly used the aura reading art. The horseface cultivator was 1 level above him, a 5th level divine sea cultivator. Nguy Tac had been unable to find Thiet Sac, so he had decided to create enough noise to attract anyone nearby. But he still could not tell whether this horseface cultivator belonged to Thiet Sac or the conspirators. Come out. You think I can't see you hiding there? The horseface cultivator suddenly spoke coldly. Nguy Tac's heart nearly jumped out of his chest. For an instant, he thought the man possessed some extraordinary technique capable of seeing through the invisibility talisman. Then he noticed the man's eyes. They were darting randomly in every direction. He never once looked toward the tree where Nguy Tac was hiding. Damn bastard. He's bluffing. Definitely not a good person. A soft sound came from the forest opposite the horse-faced cultivator. Another person stepped out and made a hand gesture, signaling that he was an ally and there was no need to be nervous. Nguy Tac's heart turned cold. It was the purple-robed first-level Heavenly Circuit Taoist from the Northern Market. So the horse-faced bastard really was one of them. Blackwater Poison Toad, the purple-robed Taoist said coldly while looking at the dead beast. It was probably that brat. Only a low-level cultivator like him would need talismans to deal with a third-tier beast. The horse-faced cultivator nodded. Senior Tutu, that brat intends to ruin our plans. We can't let him live. He probably hasn't gone far. If we split up and search, we'll find him. You go. The purple-robed Taoist spoke coldly. I'll search the surrounding area. That brat might be more cunning than he looks. Perhaps he's waiting for Thiet Sach to arrive and plans to circle back after pretending to leave. Damn it. Nguy Tac silently groaned. He had not wanted to risk fighting a Heavenly Circuit cultivator. But the invisibility talisman had a limited duration. If the purple-robed Taoist stayed here until the effect expired, Nguy Tac would inevitably be discovered. After hesitating for only a moment, he held his breath and took out the Sunflare Treasure Talisman, 5-element bronze ring, and Yin Wraithblade fragment. The horse-faced cultivator nodded and prepared to leave. Who's there? At that exact instant, cold light suddenly flashed in the purple-robed Taoist's eyes. He turned sharply toward the place where Nguy Tac was hidden. Ah! The purple-robed Taoist and horse-faced cultivator screamed almost simultaneously. A burst of light, countless times brighter than the midday sun, exploded across the area. Their eyes felt as though needles had been driven into them. Both instantly squeezed their eyes shut as tears poured down their faces. At the same moment, a bronze ring dropped from above. It expanded around the purple-robed Taoist's body, then contracted violently and bound his arms and legs together. Whoosh! A violent wind suddenly erupted through the forest around the swamp. Dozens of terrifying black skulls formed from yin wind appeared within the storm. Alongside them, a single streak of black light shot toward the purple-robed Taoist. His purple Taoist robe erupted with two streams of light, one shaped like a dragon and the other like a tiger. Those protective manifestations stopped all the black skulls formed from yin energy, but the streak of black light cut straight through his neck. His head flew from his shoulders. Blood erupted from the severed neck like a fountain. Whoosh! At the exact instant the Taoist's head left his body, a streak of white light shot toward Nguy Tac's hiding place. Branches and leaves exploded apart. The trunk of the ancient tree was sliced completely in half. Senior Tutu! The horse-faced cultivator was still unable to open his eyes after the blinding flash. He screamed in terror and activated a green protective barrier around himself. Almost simultaneously, a wave of white freezing mist descended from the air nearby. The cold was so intense that thick ice instantly formed over the surface of the swamp with loud cracking sounds. The white mist engulfed the horse-faced cultivator's green barrier but failed to break it. However, the surrounding cold still stiffened his body. That brief moment was enough. Violent wind erupted again. Black skulls and another streak of black light smashed through the green barrier. The horse-faced cultivator's face twisted in terror. He did not even have time to scream. Black energy exploded around him, and the black blade light swept through his body, tearing him into countless pieces. Done! Nguy Tac was still hidden by the invisibility talisman. Cold sweat soaked him as he remembered the ancient tree being cut in half beneath him. He immediately swallowed a chi recovery pill. A 4th-level Divine Sea cultivator had just killed a 1st-level Heavenly Circuit cultivator and a 5th-level Divine Sea cultivator almost instantly. For someone at Nguy Tac's realm, that was an astonishing achievement. But the truth was that he had struck while both opponents were completely unprepared. The Sunflare Treasure Talisman blinded them. The 5-element bronze ring prevented the purple-robed Taoist from moving properly. If Nguy Tac had been stupid enough to remain inside the tree while attacking, the Heavenly Circuit cultivator's final counterattack would have killed him even after the man's head was severed. During that instant of ambush, Nguy Tac had not had enough time to activate either the Black Tortoise shield or the defensive power of his treasure robe. Almost the moment Nguy Tac activated the Sunflare Treasure Talisman, the purple-robed Taoist had already sensed danger. If the Sunflare Treasure Talisman had been an ordinary offensive artifact instead of a restriction-type treasure, the Taoist might have blocked it in time. Even the man's robe had been powerful enough to stop the black yin wind skulls produced by the yin wraithblade, and that white light counterattack had been one of the Taoist's own spells. Even fired in the final instant before death, it had possessed terrifying power. Heavenly Circuit cultivators were truly frightening. The defensive barrier activated by the 5th-level Divine Sea cultivator had also been extremely strong. Even the third-tier mystic ice talisman Nguy Tac used had failed to break it. If he had not possessed an offensive treasure like the Yin Wraithblade, killing the horse-faced cultivator would have been extremely difficult. More importantly, with Nguy Tac's current cultivation, activating the Yin Wraithblade twice in succession had almost completely emptied his true essence. After swallowing a key recovery pill, Nguy Tac did not dare remain in the area. He recalled the 5-element bronze ring that was still binding the purple-robed Taoist's corpse, stripped the clothing and valuables from both dead cultivators, bundled everything together, and quickly disappeared into the forest. Not long after Nguy Tac left the swamp, a gray shadow shot from the trees. It was the gray-robed cultivator he had first seen whispering with the conspirators in the northern market. The man whose face Nguy Tac had not clearly seen at the time. He was also a first-level Heavenly Circuit cultivator. How is this possible? The moment the gray-robed man saw the scene, his expression changed dramatically. He was thin, with a sharp chin and a large mole on his face. He instantly activated a wooden bowl-shaped artifact. It expanded into a yellow-green barrier around his entire body. At the same time, he pulled out something resembling a white fishbone about 2 feet long and looked around in alarm. The Tutua Wanderer had been stronger than him. Yet Tu and a 5th-level Divine Sea cultivator had both been killed here, and both corpses had been stripped clean. Could it be that besides the low-level brat they were hunting, some terrifying high-level cultivator had entered Thon Fong Tomb? While the gray-robed man stood there in shock, Nguy Tac had already run for his life and hidden inside a hollow beneath the roots of a dead ancient tree. The opening was only about half a person's height. Nguy Tac carefully covered it with dead branches and vines. Then he crouched inside as silently as possible and began examining the items he had taken from his 2 enemies. That purple robe is the Dragon Tiger Purple Star robe, the old man in green said as Nguy Tac put it aside. You can't activate it at the same time as your current treasure garment. Its defense is also slightly weaker than the modified robe you're wearing. Nguy Tac nodded. He carefully searched the clothing and belongings, taken from the purple-robed Taoist and horse-faced cultivator. After feeling through everything for a while, the tension in his eyes suddenly transformed into delight. From the old Taoist's clothing, he pulled out a black storage treasure pouch. From the horse-faced cultivator, he found 2 bulging leather bags and several miscellaneous items. Damn! The Taoist storage treasure pouch looked different from Nguy Tac's, but it functioned in exactly the same way. Nguy Tac picked it up and sent his spiritual awareness inside. He nearly bit his own tongue. Spirit stones. There were spirit stones everywhere. Besides several hundred low-grade spirit stones, the pouch contained more than 700 mid-grade spirit stones and 5 high-grade spirit stones. More than 700 mid-grade spirit stones were equivalent to more than 7,000 low-grade spirit stones. 5 high-grade spirit stones were equivalent to another 500 low-grade spirit stones. Altogether, the Taoist storage treasure pouch held more than 8,000 low-grade spirit stones worth of wealth. Excellent! The horse-faced cultivator's 2 bulging bags were clearly spirit stone pouches. Nguy Tac opened them and could not stop himself from shouting. Compared with these high-level cultivators, he truly had been dirt poor. The horse-faced cultivator seemed to enjoy collecting high-grade spirit stones. There was not a single mid-grade stone inside either pouch. Aside from more than 50 low-grade spirit stones, there were over 30 high-grade ones. One high-grade spirit stone contained as much spiritual energy as 100 low-grade spirit stones. Nguy Tac had seen them before, but he had never actually owned one. To him, high-grade spirit stones were extremely rare treasures. He could not resist taking one out and admiring it. Its size was roughly the same as a mid-grade or low-grade spirit stone, but the color was completely different. It was pure white, translucent, and brilliantly crystalline. Seeing Nguy Tac staring at it, the old man in green snapped angrily. You still have time to admire a high-grade spirit stone? Hurry up and see whether these people carried anything that can keep you alive. Nguy Tac broke into a sweat. He put the high-grade spirit stone down and began inspecting everything else. Besides spirit stones, the purple-robed Taoist storage treasure pouch contained 2 white jade medicine bottles, a thin Taoist manual, 6 golden objects shaped like willow leaves, and 1 black pill. Golden spirit pills. Nguy Tac first took out the 2 white jade bottles. He had assumed they contained key recovery pills like the medicine Lam Dao Not carried. One bottle did indeed contain 20 key recovery pills. The second bottle, however, held 3 pale golden medicinal pills. Nguy Tac recognized them immediately. Golden spirit pills. They were refined from the demonic cores of third-tier beasts combined with several spiritual medicines. Cultivators of the present era commonly relied on spirit stones and pills refined from demonic cores to advance cultivation. One golden spirit pill actually contained slightly less total spiritual energy than a high-grade spirit stone. but the spiritual energy within the pill could be refined much faster. Each pill was worth around 110 low-grade spirit stones. Only heavenly circuit cultivators capable of hunting high-level demonic beasts people, like the purple-robed Taoist, could comfortably use golden spirit pills for daily cultivation. Ordinary low-level cultivators knew that pills refined from demonic cores could increase cultivation speed, but few could afford them. Even Nguy Tac had always been reluctant to spend dozens or hundreds of low-grade spirit stones on a single cultivation pill. A high-grade mystic cultivation art? Nguy Tac picked up the thin Taoist manual and glanced through it. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. The manual was titled The Golden Liquid Flowing Elixir Art. It was a genuine high-grade mystic true essence cultivation technique. In the past, Nguy Tac would have dreamed of finding a cultivation art like this, so he could abandon the purple mystic true art. Now, however, he possessed the heaven-mending pill. Switching cultivation arts would mean wasting all the strengthening he had already accumulated. The manual was effectively useless to him. A set of flying artifacts? Nguy Tac picked up the 6 golden willow leaves. They were 6 extremely thin flying blades made from refined metal. Each blade carried different runes. Sulfur flying blades. Quasi-spirit grade set. They don't consume much true essence. The old man in green immediately identified them. Then he added coldly, if you've already used the Yin Scale Bone Sword, exhausted the Yin Wraith Blade, and have almost no true essence left, these can still give you one final thing to fight with. An offensive quasi-spirit grade artifact set? Joy flashed through Tac's eyes. Then he smiled bitterly. Normally, a set like this would be extremely difficult to obtain, but compared with the enemies he was preparing to face, it was not especially impressive. And what's this? The final item inside the old Taoist storage pouch was a black pill. Nguy Tac examined it from several angles and could not identify it. A throat-sealing pill. The old man sounded contemptuous. Dissolve it in water and it becomes colorless and tasteless. It can poison many 5th-tier demonic beasts to death. If you ever get tired of living, swallow it. Even if there were 100 of you, everyone would die. He snorted. Looks like that old Taoist was a truly sinister bastard. The old man then glanced over the horse-face cultivator's miscellaneous items. Quicksand talisman. Stone pillar talisman. Fire shield treasure talisman. Nothing extraordinary, but better than nothing. What's this? Nguy Tac opened the horse-faced cultivator's other leather pouch. There were only 2 things inside. A bag of white powder, and a half-fist-sized lump of silver refined metal that looked like artifact refining material. Nguy Tac initially felt disappointed. Then he recognized the white powder and immediately brightened. White-scaled beast bone powder. Apparently, the cultivators of the Hax-Sat sect had already planned for the possibility that Thiet Saksh and the heart-eating worms would cripple each other. If the survivors could no longer deal with the invisible beasts, the conspirators would move in and kill the heart-eating worms themselves. With this bag of bone powder, Nguy Tac's chances of surviving an unlucky encounter with a heart-eating worm inside Thon Fong Tomb had just increased substantially. That's azure thread silver, one of the finest artifact refining materials. The remaining silver metal made even the old man in green sound surprised. That greedy horse-faced bastard actually had something like this? Nguy Tac looked at the metal curiously. What is azure thread silver? The old man answered irritably. Explaining it to you now is useless. Survive first. If you make it home alive, then we'll talk. Nguy Tac did not argue. He put away all the items that were temporarily useless, including the spirit stones and dragon tiger purple star robe, inside the newly acquired black storage treasure pouch. Then he remained still for a moment and thought carefully about what to do next. At that exact moment, boom, boom, boom! A series of deep impacts rolled through the ground. The earth beneath Thon Fong Tomb trembled like an earthquake. Nguy Tac's face immediately twisted. Damn it, old man. I like crawling through small holes. Who said I wanted to crawl into something this huge? The sound was indeed coming from beneath Thon Fong Tomb. Several vertical tunnels in the northern region descended underground like abandoned mineshafts. With every distant explosion, intense flashes of light rose from some of those openings. Following the tunnels downward led to the true underground mausoleum of Thon Fong Tomb. The ancient subterranean palace complex was terrifyingly vast. Most of it had collapsed over the ages, but some structures remained relatively intact. Even one small section of the underground tomb was far larger than Stone Silkworm Cavern, and every bit as complicated as a maze. If words were not enough to describe it, imagine a city that once held several million people. Then imagine an earthquake destroying that city, burying it underground, and condemning it to eternal darkness where sunlight would never appear again. Even someone who had lived in such a city for years would have trouble finding a particular street afterward. Ask them to locate a brothel or even a public latrine among the ruins, and they would probably have no idea where to begin. And unlike an ordinary ruined city, This place was also filled with demonic beasts such as corpse-rot beetles. At that moment, deep inside one of the underground palaces of Thonfong Tomb, Nam Cung Vu Tinh and her group were surrounded by a swarm of corpse-rot beetles. There were more than 30 controlled corpses. Every corpse was blackened and slick, its skin shining as though someone had covered an entire group of dead people in oil. They twisted into unnatural positions and charged from every direction with both arms raised, as though they intended to tear the 5 trapped cultivators apart alive. Including Nam Cung Vu Tinh, there were 5 cultivators inside the formation. Liu Ngu, the same man who had accompanied Han VV to Stone Silkworm Cavern, was among them. At the center stood a heavily bearded cultivator wearing coarse hemp clothing. Every time he waved his hand, another small round shield of lightning appeared around the group. Each shield was about the size of a melon. By now, 30 or 40 of them were floating around the 5 cultivators. Whenever a corpse crashed into one, lightning jolted through its body and sent it bouncing backward in an almost comical fashion. Beside the bearded man stood a short cultivator in black robes. Whenever he cast a spell, numerous stone spikes like bamboo shoots erupted from the ground within 1 or 2 zhang, trapping the controlled corpses and preventing them from moving. Nam Cung Vu Tinh, Liu Ngu, and a slightly sallow-faced young cultivator continuously launched offensive spells. The young man in the green robe was actually a first-level Heavenly Circuit cultivator. Every time he attacked, 5 green blades of light flew out and cut one corpse into several pieces. The 5 worked together extremely well. Their offense and defense were tightly coordinated. Dealing with the corpse-rot beetles seemed relatively easy. In only a short time, they had already killed more than 10. Yet Nam Cung Vu Tinh looked increasingly uneasy. Nam Cung Vu Tinh, what's wrong? Liu Ngu suddenly noticed her expression and quickly looked over. Nam Cung Vu Tinh stared down in disbelief. He came. Liu Ngu and the other 3 cultivators looked at her suspiciously. Who? Nguy Tac. The friend you met once before. Nam Cung Vu Tinh held up a communication jade talisman that was still glowing. This only lights up when he comes within 300 miles of me. The underground palace descends more than 100 miles. He must currently be somewhere not far from the entrance to Thonfong Tomb's underground mausoleum. She frowned. Under normal circumstances, there is no reason for him to come here right now, and he keeps activating the communication jade talisman. He must know I'm here and be trying to warn me about something. Something does seem wrong. The sallow-faced first-level Heavenly Circuit cultivator spoke in a low voice. We divided into 3 teams to search for the heart-eating worm. It's impossible for all 3 groups to conveniently gather at the same place at the same time. He looked at the controlled corpses around them. These corpse-rot beetles are acting strangely too. It almost feels as though they're deliberately holding us here and preventing us from rejoining the other 2 groups. How could that be? The short black-robed cultivator immediately shook his head. His voice was unusually sharp. Corpse-rot beetles can't possibly possess that much intelligence. The sallow-faced cultivator seemed to be the group's leader. He thought for a moment. Either way, we should first find a way to meet Naplan Bang and the others. After that, we'll try to contact Nam Cung Vu Ting's friend. Looks like I need to learn some kind of night vision eye technique in the future. Why do I seem destined to keep crawling through caves? Nguy Tac wanted to cry as he looked at the maze-like underground tomb before him. He had always disliked hunting demonic beasts in places where escape routes were limited. Yet after fighting Lam Dao Na inside a cavern, he had gone to Stone Silkworm Cavern. And now he was crawling through the underground mausoleum of Thonfong Tomb. One hole after another, the underground tomb looked exactly like a city destroyed by an earthquake and buried beneath the ground. Nguy Tac currently stood on a broken flight of stone steps. On both sides were shattered pillars and broken statues. Ahead stretched the remains of ancient palaces swallowed by darkness. Half-destroyed statues and stone columns rose in jagged silhouettes. Dry bones were scattered throughout the ruined halls. The cavern ceiling overhead was 7 or 8 zhang high. Above Nguy Tac was a crack in the rock just wide enough for one person to crawl through. The underground tomb was like a room whose walls had been smashed full of holes. Nguy Tac had crawled through that crack to reach this level, but the wind cloud boots could only lift him 5 or 6 zhang into the air. He had fallen too far down. If he wanted to leave, he would have to find another route. Nguy Tac looked back for a while, then whispered to the old man in green. "Old man, help me keep watch. If I accidentally trigger some ancient restriction, or get ambushed by a demonic beast and die here, this place is so abandoned that it might take another few tens of thousands of years before someone finds you again." "Stop talking nonsense. I'll watch for you," the old man snorted. "And even if you die, you don't need to worry about me. My remaining lifespan isn't that long anyway." Nguy Tac nodded. He narrowed his eyes and allowed them to adjust to the darkness. He did not dare take out his night luminous pearl. Once he could see faint outlines again, he began moving toward the direction from which he had heard earlier fighting. The underground tomb was truly dangerous. Nguy Tac was genuinely afraid. Broken stones covered everything. There were countless intersections, but almost no intact roads. Many ruined palaces looked ready to collapse. Sometimes half a broken wall leaned against a damaged roof, and Nguy Tac had to pass underneath, while wondering whether the whole structure would fall and crush him. Other times, a path looked completely normal until he followed it for some distance and discovered that it ended at a shattered bridge hanging over a seemingly bottomless chasm. Whenever the route failed, he had to turn back. Nguy Tac repeatedly left marks so he would not become completely lost. The worst part was that after he traveled for a while toward the original sound, the fighting suddenly stopped. Then, from extremely far away in another direction, he heard the faint sound of cultivators casting spells. Nam Cung Vu Tinh, beautiful lady, where exactly are you? Give me some kind of sign. All Nguy Tac knew was that she was somewhere inside this underground complex, whose total width might extend hundreds of miles, and she was within 300 miles of him. A short while earlier, the communication jade talisman had lit up. Unfortunately, the talisman was a low-grade communication tool. It could tell him that Nam Cung Vu Tinh was nearby and apparently still alive. It could not transmit any actual message or direction. Nguy Tac stood before a narrow passage, unable to decide whether to continue or retreat. The passage was just wide enough for one person. A crack in the ceiling led upward at an angle, and faint light filtered down from somewhere above. Another sound came from a different direction. Nguy Tac ground his teeth and entered the narrow passage anyway. The newer sound was far too distant. If he spent enormous effort traveling halfway toward it, only for the sound to disappear again, he would gain nothing. Better to keep moving toward the place where he had first heard fighting. He would inspect the area and decide what to do afterward. The one-person passage was too narrow to turn around easily. Nguy Tac became even more cautious. Every nerve in his body tightened like a bowstring. Then the old man's voice suddenly sounded inside his ear. Careful, there's a cultivator ahead. At the end of the narrow passage stood another ruined palace. A stairway made entirely of stone steps cut through the wreckage. Inside a half-collapsed hall beside those steps, a middle-aged cultivator wearing a black cloak was hiding in a corner. His eyes remained fixed warily on the stairway above. The man's face was unusually long. He had triangular eyes and a dark, gloomy appearance comparable to the red-robed cultivator who had stolen Nguy Tac's earth-fire furnace residence. Suddenly, without warning, the man seemed to sense something. He spun around. Inside a ruined palace not far to his left, a blue-robed Nguy Tac stood there looking at him seriously. "It's you!" The middle-aged cultivator's expression changed. Two streaks of black light shot from his hands. They turned out to be a pair of glittering claw-shaped artifacts resembling bird talons. What? The two streaks of black light struck Nguy Tac's chest almost without resistance. But instead of blood spraying from a wound, both claw artifacts passed straight through his body. Nguy Tac's entire figure rippled like clear water. At that same moment, a bronze ring the size of a water barrel suddenly dropped around the middle-aged cultivator and bound his body tightly. Before he could even shout, violent wind erupted behind him. More than a dozen terrifying black skulls and a streak of black blade light crashed into his back. The cultivator's head flew through the air. The black skulls tore countless holes through his body. 5th level Divine Sea Cultivator. The real Nguy Tac stepped out from behind him and visibly relaxed. He quickly gathered everything on the corpse into a bundle and followed the stone steps deeper into the forest of ruined palaces. The blue-robed Nguy Tac, standing beside the corpse, remained motionless for a short while. Then it gradually faded and disappeared into the air. For a time, the entire underground tomb became utterly silent. Nguy Tac no longer knew whether that silence should make him feel relieved or even more nervous. 30 or 40 zhang ahead lay the edge of a bottomless abyss. A stone bridge connected the two sides. Aside from several large-looking cracks, the bridge itself remained relatively intact. At the end of the bridge closest to Nguy Tac stood a pile of enormous rocks that looked as though they had once been transported there for carving but never finished. A cultivator was hiding among them. The man's robe was made from some unknown material that could change color with the surrounding environment, much like the camouflage of a gray rock serpent. At the moment, the robe was gray like stone. If the old man in green had not warned Nguy Tac, he might have walked right beside the cultivator in this darkness without noticing him. Nguy Tac quietly used the aura-reading art. Like the man he had just killed with an illusion and ambush, this hidden cultivator was at the 5th level of the Divine Sea realm. Apparently, not every member of the Haksat sect involved in the operation was a heavenly circuit cultivator. Still, their numbers were clearly substantial, and they seemed extremely familiar with the underground tomb. They had stationed people in multiple locations to secretly monitor Thiet Sach and wait for the right moment to surround and eliminate them. Nguy Tac held his breath for a while. Then he took out another illusory light talisman. Including this one, he had 4 remaining. One of them contained the illusion of a herd of pigs. In the current situation, however, Nguy Tac felt that using an illusion of himself was much more useful. Just like before, it would help him immediately determine whether the hidden person was an ally or enemy. At least he would not accidentally ambush a member of Thiet Sach. Nguy Tac quietly moved closer to the cultivator hiding at the bridge. What? Planning to ambush me? Nguy Tac froze. His soul nearly flew from his body. He was still at least 20 zhang away when the hidden cultivator suddenly turned toward him. The man appeared to be a little over 30. His face was thin and bony, with high cheekbones. Most striking of all, he had only one eye. A black patch covered the other. The single visible eye stared directly at Nguy Tac. The one-eyed cultivator clasped both hands behind his back and laughed coldly. Nguy Tac's heart pounded. He hurriedly pulled out a fireball talisman while putting on an expression of disbelief. How is that possible? How did you discover me? What? You think a first-tier fireball talisman can deal with me? The one-eyed cultivator looked at him with extreme contempt. He pointed casually. A pitch-black iron shield floated into place before him. Forget it. Running into a high-level cultivator like you means I'm unlucky. Nguy Tac's face turned gray. He slowly lowered the fireball talisman. I worked so hard just to get here. I haven't even found anyone from Thiet Sach, and your people already caught me. He sighed. I just don't understand one thing. How did you detect me? The one-eyed cultivator smiled smugly. It doesn't matter if I let you die knowing the answer. He waved one hand behind his back. A tiny black shadow suddenly crawled onto his arm. It was a rat covered in black and silver stripes. A silver-eating rat. So you're using a beast control technique. Nguy Tac stared at it and immediately understood. The one-eyed cultivator laughed loudly. Why are you putting that fireball talisman back inside your robe? I'll only have to take it out again after I kill you. Nguy Tac nodded, lowered his head with a sigh, and appeared to tuck the fireball talisman back into his chest. Then he suddenly waved his hand. The one-eyed cultivator's laughter stopped. His single eye widened. What are you doing? A black tortoise shield? A massive black shield shaped like a tortoise shell had appeared in front of Nguy Tac.